Testing, testing. Good morning, good morning. Good morning. Good morning, good morning. All right. Samantha Dragonati bringing us into this very long live stream, probably, just to cover this 2.5-hour clip here. Hasan and Ethan. Talk about it. All right. Oh, happy Friday, happy Friday. Go ahead and pause music. 1, 2, 3. Big pause, big abrupt pause. All right. So today we're going to do this in preparation for the conversation. Hold on, my mouse is a little dirty. We have to do this in preparation for the conversation that's happening later today. I think Hasan and Ethan are talking 12:30 p.m. PST, which is way past my European bedtime. So I won't be reviewing their discussion live today. I hope you guys enjoy it when they do talk, assuming they will talk, right? But today, for my live stream, since, it's like 7 a.m. Pacific, I think, right now. So they're hours and hours away from going live. We're going to watch them, quote, talk for the last time. So we can sort of just get a refresher of how things happen. Now, if you're new to my channel, we do philosophy through pop culture here, philosophy, the love of wisdom. We're trying to answer those big why questions about the universe and about ourselves. And so I think Ethan and Hasan are a really good example of why people struggle to get along, why they struggle to see each other, why we're all from different bubbles and communicate differently and words mean different things to all of us. I think some people hear the word bubble and they automatically think it's like an offense, because usually people say like, oh, you're in a bubble. I can just tell you're in a bubble. But I am proposing to the world, my contribution to the philosophy bubble is that we are all in bubbles, and we think that some people just aren't in them, but like we are all in bubbles. And so again, instead of pointing the finger and saying you're in the bubble, you need to point the finger at yourself and say like, oh, you're in the bubble. There's nothing wrong with being in the bubble, but there could be something wrong with not recognizing you're in the bubble, which is really the issue I find amongst people in the way we communicate. Is because we struggle to see ourselves as people in bubbles, we struggle to acknowledge that we're working off limited information. We're not using the words the same. So yesterday, Hasan watched the Sam Cedar stuff, and then I was watching a video from Hasan Daily, which I think is one of his side channels, one of the fan channels, and something that stood out to me as I was listening to it was his memory of how he defended Ethan. I've been referencing this a lot in my streams because people, like, this is such a spider web of problems that if we start to untangle it, we'll really just see like it's hurting people to some extent. And Ethan is the hurt party, but most of it is self-flagellation. And this is Hasan reminiscing. So yesterday's Hasan reminisced about 2023 Hasan, talking about that Ethan and saying why he was putting so much effort into understanding Ethan and advocating for Ethan. And, I just think it's important to listen to. So it's just like 3 or 4 minutes of current day Hasan talking about past Hasan, and that past Hasan is somebody we're going to review today. So we're incepting Hasan today and Ethan and their dynamic. And remember, this is about all of us. I've had this problem online with YouTubers. Hasan and I have a frenemy, which is Destiny. We both had problems with Destiny, a misunderstanding of differences, values, thinking you overlap with someone, realizing like, oh, we are not on the same side. Same thing happened with him and Ethan, where you start to make connections with people online thinking like, yeah, we're all progressives. We're fighting for liberation. We're not fighting for liberation. Oh my God, we are not on the same side. And then it's this whole like, you feel stupid. And I kind of feel like you feel stupid for giving people a chance, but also you feel so sure that it's the right thing to do and to continue doing. And I am sure with my chest that it is always the right thing to do, to be open to people hearing your position and being open to you. I think I also exhibit a skill that I wish other people had, that I often get complimented for, which I will take the compliment because I've worked really hard to have this tool. When I talked to Ellie the vegan, one of the things her audience had said is like, wow, Brittany's like weirdly receptive to what you're saying about veganism. And it was because I was genuinely curious. I was genuinely open-minded. And I was honest with Ellie that I couldn't quite see it from her perspective, but I would work on it. I couldn't quite embody what she was expressing to me, but I would really work on it. And I have been working on it. I've been plant-based since I did that 30-day vegan challenge. I could see the differences when vegans were giving me their rhetoric of you're turning me away from veganism. My brain rejects this way you're marketing your veganism, but I also appreciated the way Ellie was meeting me where I was and having the conversation. And look, I'm not saying I'm going to be vegan one day, because to be vegan philosophically is very different. Like veganism isn't a diet. So for now, I am diet plant-based, and I am also philosophically against factory farming. So I'm not eating animal products. I'm dairy free. I'm animal body part free. You know what I mean? Trust me, the lack of collagen is showing in my nails. Trust me, I am I am not eating animal products, you know, to the best of my ability. Sometimes on occasion, I sneak in a croissant or a donut, which is not good, right? But generally speaking, that's why I'm not vegan, right? Because I am on occasion making an exception for a donut, which means I can't be vegan, right? Because that means I'm not embodying the realization that animals are their own viable consciousness, that animals have rights, that animals have, this is very, very interesting. So when we're thinking about Ethan and Hassan, the reason I'm using that as an example is that we're seeing people, okay, the same way vegans always say you can't say you're an animal lover and eat animals. We're seeing the same thing happen with Ethan and Hassan. We're seeing the same thing happen globally. That's one of the best vegan arguments I've heard that I think is so interesting. Like, how can you say you're an animal lover and eat animals? That's a great question. Let's talk about it. Like, let's talk. That's a great question. I would love to deconstruct that with you. You know, what does that mean to be an animal lover? What does it mean to be an advocate for animals if you're a meat eater? Like, what does that mean, right? That's a great question. So, again, when we watch Ethan and Hassan don't want anti-Semitism in the world, but one is rallying for Palestine and the other is viewing that as anti-Semitism. And even though Ethan also considers himself pro-Palestinian, did I say anti-Palestine or pro-Palestine? Sorry, pro-Palestinian. It's kind of like saying you're vegan, but it's just the diet. Are we, I'm a little tired today. Are we, am I making sense? Like, it feels like Ethan is trying, but it's not where it's good enough in quotation marks, but that's okay. But it's not okay for you to think it's good enough when it's not where you need to be. You know what I mean? That's the dilemma we're running into today. So just, okay, all of that to say, all of that to prepare us mentally for jumping into this topic today. Here is Hassan, yesterday's Hassan, talking about in the past Hassan and Ethan. Okay, so this is from yesterday's stream.
Starts off with Ethan Klein claims
Ethan is a mega Zionist. You are wrong, okay? Trust me.
So this is old Hassan talking, 2023 Hassan, in October 30th. This is going to be about 10 days before the conversation we're about to watch here on stream. So we're doing a little bit of Hassan inception right now.
I don't think you know. I don't think you know many Zionists if you think Ethan is a mega Zionist. Not even close, dude. Time and time again, I've spoken about how Ethan is not your enemy. A person who cries when a Palestinian child dies is not your enemy. Okay? He's not. I've said these exact words over and over again. I told people in this community and people everywhere that will listen to what I have to say that you have to choose who you are actually angry at. There are people who are so loud and so proud about the ethnic cleansing campaign the Palestinians are experiencing currently. Go yell at them. He's been shitting on you on his members-only streams. I don't care. I don't care. Bro literally shot on you yesterday and his coworker for saying from the river to the sea, sorry, dog. I don't care. I do not care. This is petty drama, okay? I don't care. And neither should you, okay? I will always...
This is Biden talking about Netanyahu. No, this isn't Biden talking about Netanyahu, okay?
So now we have current day Hassan talking.
I'm explaining, like, it's very obvious. I'm explaining to you my position right here and right now. Listen to my words, okay? Just listen to what I am saying. When did it stop becoming petty drama? It stopped becoming petty drama when Ethan actively started taking scalps, when he started going after pro-Palestinian content creators and getting them banned. On November 1st, 2023, I was way more focused on, as you can see from the details in front of me from the Times of Israel article I was reading, that I was way more focused on the actual issues, the actual genocide that was
I agree with him. I think you had to stop losing compassion for Ethan when he went after Palestinian streamers or pro-Palestinian streamers, because now it's serious. Now it's not just a difference of opinion. Now you're actively participating, right? Like now you're using your freedom, your free will in quotation marks here, to kick the underdogs. And so now we have a problem, right? Now we have to go after Ethan. That's what Ethan doesn't understand when he says, why does Ian go after me? Why is Hassan going after me? Why aren't these people defending me? Because you're literally using your free time to deplatform them. What are you talking about?
Taking place. Okay. And I don't even think that was messed up of me to do. That was what my focus was. And I think it was the appropriate thing to focus on. Part of the reason why I thought it was irrelevant what Ethan Klein was saying at that point was because like he's just another random content creator and he wasn't occupying this space as someone who is like consistently defending Israel. I thought foolishly that he still was an open-minded individual, that he was actually going to have a change of heart, have a change of perspective. That was my assessment.
Stand by Ethan's ability to empathize and want to learn and want to change his perspective. Okay? That's it.
It's
Ultimately,
telling that Ethan never showed this clip compilation to show how pro-Palestine he is because it shows you were defending him when he was smearing you. Yes.
Ethan has the capacity to arrive at a meaningful position because he has empathy for Palestinian people. He is literally better on this circumstance.
He was never an open-minded individual. He was like this before Leftovers. Why are you and Chaz surprised? I didn't think so. I was wrong on that. I think that there was a point in time when he was an open-minded person.
This issue, then 99% of like Americans who are ultra-Zionists, okay? I'm not saying the entire country is ultra-Zionist, but like 99% of Americans in the media and 99% of Americans in position of power that literally are just like unconditional support to Israel. Shut the fuck up. I've always demonstrated that until it reaches a boiling point, that I will always be kind to those around me that I believe I can communicate with, that I can lead by empathy. Okay?
And I agree with this as well. I think people don't understand it. Like, I genuinely think people also don't see when you're doing it. I genuinely think any falling out I've ever had with a YouTuber was because they didn't realize how much emotional labor I was doing on their behalf. When it comes to the recent stuff that I went through with the boys, because they had no idea that I was making space for them, that I was going on a limb for them, that my audience was pretty mad at me for even associating with them. But I kept saying to my audience, there's a chance they could change their mind. There's a chance there's something there. But they didn't get that. So when Destiny blew up the bridge with me and went like, Brittany betrayed me, Brittany was my friend. First of all, that's a spinning of the narrative. The way Ethan is saying, Ian is my close friend. Ian is my close friend. Okay, see, now you're being purposely obtuse, or something is happening where it feels like you're being malicious because you know we're not close friends. You don't know anything about my life. You don't know anybody about, you don't know about me. You don't know about, like, I doubt Ian truly, like, and even if they were close friends, what you're saying is bad. Like, even if you were close friends, what you're doing is bad and you're in the public sphere. Even if we're friends, it's okay for you to make content disagreeing with my points. And it's okay with me feel like I think I've gotten to the point in my life where like we have got to stop being offended that we fit into a certain category. What might feel bad is if you genuinely think your friend is seeing you incorrectly. But the truth is like, okay, so that's on them, bro. You know, I feel like that's on them. You know what I mean? I feel like genuinely when people see me incorrectly, I just go, look, dude, like it hurts my feelings, but also like, hey, what am I going to do? I know who I am. I'm making it clear. And if I'm wrong, I'll admit to it later. But I think the problem is like, one, you have to think that you might be wrong. And two, I think your actions show. I think your actions come through. I really do. I think I have a very strict set of rules of what I do when I'm having conflict with friends. I have a very strict set of rules of how I act and what I'm supposed to do. Like I never block Inner Circle as an example. So even though Inner Circle gets mad at me and blocks me, that's their business. Like I don't block Inner Circle. That's like a big rule of mine, right? Friends that are extended, like I might block you if like we're work friends and I never want to talk to you again, but I usually send out pretty nice letters to people, or I usually try to end friendships with like, thank you for the good times. I'm disappointed in this opinion, but you're an adult and I believe you have the right to have this opinion. I wish you the best. Like I try to be very cordial about the ending of friendships. And I remember just like Hassan was like waiting, like Hassan also did the same emotional labor for Destiny where he was like, you can't say these things. Like you know, you try to do things for people, but they don't meet you where you're at. And that's fine. Like they can do that. But then they're like, I can't believe Hassan betrayed me. And it's not that. And I used to think that too. When I was in the Destiny sphere, I believed Destiny's version of the friend breakup. But then I watched the videos and I was like, oh, Yeah, Hassan's more right than Destiny. Same thing with Ethan and Hassan. I used to be a big fan of Ethan, and then I would watch this and I'm like, oh, well, Hassan's more right now. And like that's the dilemma, is like it's not about like I don't know how to say it. It's not about being perfect, but it is about you guys, I think there's somebody who's like less right, or somebody who's less bad at like understanding the situation. So in this instance, it's Ethan. I think Ethan is just really bad at seeing what's happening, which is why Sam Cedar came on and was like, Ethan, this isn't anti-Semitism. He's like, it is. And he's like, no, it's not. It's not. And like Ethan not being able to see that means Ethan is kind of more of the problem, right? Chat says Hassan blocked Ethan. No, I have no idea. I don't think so. I don't know. I have no idea what they did. I'm talking about myself. I have no idea if Ethan blocked Hassan, right? I doubt it at this point, right? Because they're going to talk today. I meant me. I block people. I wasn't talking about Hassan in that. Yeah. Okay.
This has been my policy in perpetuity. You know this if you've been in here long enough. I tried with Aiden Ross, okay?
Yep.
And Ethan is not Aiden Ross. I think
he showed up on Aiden, Theo. Hassan shows up on a lot of podcasts that even I wouldn't do. You know what I mean?
he will inevitably come around. Ethan is my friend. I think he's an empathetic person, and I hope that is clear. No one, like, changing your perspective on an issue that is, like, near and dear.
This is, by the way, this is 7 minutes and 34 seconds long. You need to understand something. The reason why I think it's so disingenuous and how much of a might want to move your camera to cover those notifications before someone says some fuck shit, it's fine. It doesn't matter. Why did you even bring that up? God damn it. Now someone is going to say some fuck shit. God damn it, chatter. God damn it. Oh. Sometimes you guys need to understand you're basically signaling to bad faith actors to operate in that way by saying shit like that. I hope you know that. I shouldn't have read it. It's my fault. Okay. My point was, it is crazy that he tries to claim to his audience that I was consistently attacking him from the jump. It is so wild that is like a major motivator for him. A major motivator for him is this idea that like my community was constantly attacking him and I was constantly attacking him. And it was being done in an anti-Semitic fashion. When in fact, this is what I was doing this whole time. I don't think a single Ethan Klein fan has seen this in the past year. As a fan of H3 until yesterday, I can say that the discussion with Sam was a bridge too far. I'm no longer a subscriber of his, and I'm no longer an enlightened centrist. Oh my God, he lost headband. The one guy who was constantly saying, I'm still a fan of you both. I'm still a fan of you both, but I'm officially done with H3 after hearing him be so heartless and inconsiderate to the genocide of the Palestinians. The problem is, like, I don't want his audience to leave him because he's like, this isn't my goal. Okay. My goal isn't to get people to stop watching him. My goal is to get him to stop pumping pro-Israel propaganda. Stop saying things that are in defense of Israel. Okay. That's my goal. That's what I care about. I don't care. I don't care what else he does. Okay. And the irony is,
this Hassan, Chad is asking, this Hassan is from yesterday. But earlier he was reviewing old Hassan. So this Hassan is from yesterday.
Irony is, stop attacking people, Hassanabi Jesus. Wait, what? Who am I attacking? What are you saying? All of this is additionally crazy because Chad is in here. We're giving you grief for not covering what Ethan was saying. Exactly. I think it comes from him perceiving your criticism of Israel and Israelis as him taking a personal attack on him and his family directly. It's like he can't make the situation about himself. Yes, this is defense of him is exactly what he expected from Ian. I guess you're a different case, huh? Yeah, but I did this. I did this for so long. I did this for so goddamn long because
it feels like I think when I've been really thinking about this because this is something that I really struggled with when I was coming up as a younger person, where I grew up around a lot of conservatives who would say like, challenge us, but they weren't having real conversations with me. Like they weren't listening. And I understand why they weren't listening because they already had made a decision, and that's fine. And I don't mean fine as in good. I just mean like I accept it. I'm all about radical acceptance. I accept it. But I also think it's taught me over the years to be very cautious about who I engage or give energy to, because it's like talking to a brick wall, quite literally. And I think that's so frustrating for a lot of us, but it's also why politics is so frustrating in general, because it's team sports and it's hard to convince somebody that they should switch their favorite team to another. And it is like Hassan has chosen a really difficult path. And the reason I say this is obviously Hassan's calling is because God knows I couldn't do it. Like, I want to make it clear, I chose philosophy for a reason. I think it's my calling. But like Hassan chose politics, and politics is really, really hard because not only is Hassan battling the conservatives, the liberals, and the progressives, but he's battling his own personal relationships in public a lot of the time. And I'm just kind of tired watching it, let alone could you imagine being in it? And I think that that's why it's so frustrating for people to misunderstand. And then you have all these audiences making all these like videos and digging into your psychology. And I'm not saying this is bad or good. I'm just saying it's happening. So it's exhausting. And Ethan probably feels very similarly where we're all making these videos about him. And he's like, that's not how I see myself. And that's okay. I think I'd like to get to the point though, where some of these discussions were more nuanced, but I don't think they can happen for the way that the world works, like humans in general. So like the Sam Cedar, Ethan Klein conversation, I think went exactly the way it was going to go. But I think it doesn't, I don't know, like it feels so clear to me that Ethan's not listening, but I'm sure to other people, it feels so clear that Hassan isn't listening or Sam Cedar isn't listening. Right. And I'm trying to say, I think if we really work hard on extrospecting, we could come to a sort of God view conclusion of a situation. A God view conclusion is like, you know how they say God sees everything? He knows what's in our hearts. Okay. For all my religious girlies out there who used to be religious, I think humans really struggle to do this. And I think it's almost impossible for us to do it. But I think we can get close, but it requires the person observing to deconstruct their own biases and prejudice. You know, the person in chat yesterday where I was like, what's your bias and prejudice? Tell me where you coming from. They couldn't handle that. Like they couldn't handle it because the idea of being prejudiced or biased is like very hurtful to people's feelings versus I just think it's so human. And as long as we understand that, we can start deconstructing. People just don't want to feel judged while they're getting better. And I get that. I don't like it. My PDA gets triggered pretty quickly. And so I always have to be like, I need time, you know? Also, chat, thank you so much who said I like your nails today, Brittany. They came out absolutely horrible, but I had to do my nails today because I needed to protect them from chipping. They came out so bad, but thank you. Thank you, girls. I needed that. I needed that. All of this to say, I think this is a great case study for perception, bubbles, people, and why the world was always going to be messy. Like, this is it. Like, this is why the world's always going to be messy, girls. Because I can't get Ethan and Hassan to get along. And when I say I don't mean Brittany. I mean humanity. Like, we can't get, they can't get. We're all watching it. We're all coming away with different perspectives. And then we're sitting here talking about solving solutions for 8 billion people. We need to humble ourselves. Like humanity needs to humble themselves. And look, while we're all humbling ourselves, maybe Andrew Tate and Trump never will, but at least the bad guy is clear. Well, in theory. In theory, huh? Okay, let's go back to Ethan Hassan, and then we're going to switch into the longer clip we're focusing on today.
Because I, one, thought at most this was irrelevant and it would pass and Ethan would actually come to his senses. Here to your heart is virtually impossible. It's one of the hardest things you can do. I will forever have respect for him for doing that on his own, okay? Everything that people say cynically he did to like win favors with the larger crowd, he did it on his own. Yes, you want to know why I know he did it on his own? Okay? You want to know why I know he did it on his own? Because look at the situation. He has family in Israel. He's absolutely shaped, like his worldview is shaped by this experience. And instead of just like writing off every single thing that people have said and very comfortably finding himself in the bosom of like Zionist sentiment, which he could have just as easily done. He could have just turned around and been like, yeah, fuck shit, I'm scared. These people are being anti-Semitic. And there is a lot of anti-Semitism that increases in times like this. That much is absolutely true. Instead of turning around and being like, fuck that, he's like trying to tackle it head on and go through.
Chat says, have you got dry flowers next to lit candles? Why risk the fire hazard? It worries me. Sorry. They're fake candles, girlies. Don't worry. They are real dried flowers, but they're fake candles. They're battery run. It's not real fire. Thank you for the safety concerns. They're not real.
The internal conflict, the internal struggle that he feels with his own personal experience, with his own personal worldview and his morality and the way that he sees it from what he perceives as a completely hostile audience. And you need to, as a community, also stop.
Now, this is old Hassan talking, 2023 Hassan. The volume changes. You can kind of hear the difference in their tonality.
Ripping into Ethan nonstop. As I've said it over and over again, leading up to the conversation that we had on this broadcast. You guys are so stupid for doing that.
So Hassan is lecturing his audience on behalf of his desire to meet Ethan where he's at. Do you understand the social situation that's at hand here? Hassan in 2023 is genuinely telling his audience, stop yelling at me for giving Ethan a chance. And listen, I get the same pushback from some of my audience members. I understand it. You're valid. You're great. But like, if we're content creators and we have reach, who better to make some sort of a statement of like, I will give you access to understanding people's perspectives better, as long as they understand that that's what's happening. But the thing is, Ethan doesn't get it, and people don't appreciate it. Not the audience, the people we're doing it with. Ethan doesn't appreciate it. Ethan doesn't believe it. He thinks people are being condescending towards him, but that's because he's on defense mode. You know, do you remember that lady who yelled at Gabor Mate for denying the mass political rapes? And Gabor was trying to explain to her that, like, we just don't have documentation of those. Yes, rapes happened, but not in the way that you're saying. And she's like, why are you denying the rapes? And he's like, you can see that it's hard to talk to a person when they're in their like very big emotions. There's nothing wrong with your feelings. We're just wondering if you can we talk about your feelings in a way that allows us to also have an information-based conversation. And there's no shame in it. I don't want to be a debate bro that gets up here and says, oh, I can't believe you're in your feelings. Be in your feelings, girl. I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? Like, you can be in your feelings, you know? But let's talk about that we're in our feelings. So I don't judge you too. I tend to not judge people when they're deeply in their feelings, because I think feelings can sometimes be like being drunk. It's not the real you, but it's a part of what you're trying to explain. I say things emotionally that I don't mean all the time because I'm in a heightened state of emotion. I'm trying to explain a feeling I'm having, but the words I can say, if you take them literally, can be sometimes really cruel. But I'm not trying to express the words I'm saying. I'm trying to express the feelings that I'm expressing. Like, I'm trying to tell you something, and it feels like I don't have the words for it. And so sometimes I think we choose the worst words, right? But I think that's a skill I learned over the years. It's a skill I learned to also bring like more cohesiveness to my own family, where I was like, hey, you're saying this thing right now, and I think what you're actually saying is this. Is that correct? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, okay. Like, I can it's like translating. It's like you're trying to translate for your loved ones. And the dilemma is they also have to be receptive to the fact that you're translating them correctly. And I think the problem is these conversations need to be had in private. And we keep having them online because at the end of the day, nobody here is a personal friend. Personal friends have personal conversations. Content creator friends have stream conversations. One of the things I remember Destiny would say is, Brittany and I have talked so much on stream. We've talked about so many things on stream together. And people would say, yeah, Brittany, you've spent so much time with Destiny on stream. And I was like, yeah, at work. And they're like, yeah, but like, you guys talked about really personal stuff. I was like, we talked about stuff on stream. And the internet is so just constantly online that in my head, it was obvious we were working. And in their heads, they thought we were building a friendship. And I was like, you mean like a working relationship? And they're like, why would I bring something to stream that I didn't mind total strangers knowing? Do you know what even when I talk about my fibromyalgia or my illnesses or autism, obviously I'm talking about it in a way that I know that if like people hear it, I'm processing that I'm a public figure. I'm not talking about it in the way you would talk about it with your family and friends, because I'm in public. Strangers are watching me. And so the fact that these people thought like, but you guys had such personal conversation, we need to define personal differently. And so I think that's what's happening here, where, okay, chat said you aren't autistic. You seem totally normal. Okay, I'm going to ban you because you feel like a troll and you feel unhealthy for this. Okay, like, not good energy. Not good energy. Chat says people don't realize public figures can keep things to themselves. Literally, even when it feels like we're oversharing. Sometimes the feedback I get from people is like, oh my God, Brittany overshares. I share a lot, but I always share things that I feel like make sense to tell strangers. The things that I don't tell people that are personal are things I think wouldn't be appropriate. Like, it would make sense. Like the same way I tell things to a therapist that I wouldn't tell other people. Because like there's a context, things I tell my partner that I wouldn't tell my mother, because like there's just a context of appropriateness, right? And I just don't understand how the internet hasn't grown up to know this when we're all in our fucking 40s. That's the dilemma. It's not like these viewers are 19. Some of them are fucking 40. So why don't you know that? You know? Why don't you know that? Anyways.
You are. And it frustrates me to no end. I've told you this time and time again in this time frame. Just like I kept telling you, Ethan is not your enemy over and over again. That's why.
Okay, chat. I'm gonna autistic to autistic. You said neurotypicals calling us normal isn't a compliment. You guys are remarkably cruel. We don't want to be anything like you. I have no enemies. I don't care if you're neurotypical. I don't care if you're autistic. Being autistic doesn't make you a better person. Being neurodivergent doesn't make you a better person. Nobody's better than the other. We're just people. It doesn't help the rhetoric. It's not going to help our communities. Neurotypicals aren't inherently cruel. They're just people. Right? I'm sorry, I got to point that out because sometimes I do see autistic streamers or content creators that are like, we're more compassionate. We are not. Okay, I just want to make sure. That says that I didn't say it made me a better person. Okay. Then we're on the same page. I just wanted to say it out loud because I have been seeing a lot of autistic TikTokers think they have more empathy than neurotypicals. You don't. Nobody's different. Everyone's just different, but no one's different. Everyone's the same, but no one's the same. With peace and love, we're all just people.
Why I love iDubbbz, Ethan as well. People that have actually changed course, recognized their mistakes in the past, and now advocate against those sorts of things. I think for the record, obviously.
And normal to neurotypicals just means you're exhibiting socially the behavior that I expect of you according to the script, which just, thank you, I'm good at masking, bitch. Thanks, I'm good at masking, bitch. But even then, am I that good? Not really.
I don't stand by these opinions now. Hindsight is 2020. But you need to understand something. This is a principled, empathetic stance that I maintain when I'm talking to every single person. And all of your, oh, we were right and you were wrong attitude here is
that I don't like that either. I don't appreciate that either. When people are like, see, we were right about Sneeko and Destiny. Yeah, not helping. That's not the point. Bragging that you were right, that Destiny was an asshole or that Sneeko was a bad person isn't the point. We never thought they were great people. We thought they had the potential to be good. And I'm never going to feel bad for thinking people have the potential to be good. Do you know what I'm saying? And I think that's the problem is like, oh, I always knew Ethan was a Zionist. There was a time when Ethan, had the potential to make another decision. And if you can be a force that helps people along the way, great. You know what I mean? But ultimately, you also have to accept that, like, hey, it is what it is. They made a decision, and that's also okay. Ethan made a decision, Sneeko made a decision, Destiny made a decision. They all made a decision. Okay? And that's also okay. It's a bummer, but you can't fault Hassan or me or other people for attempting to steer people in a different direction. Also, I know that it's worked. I know plenty of people who I've met who have changed my trajectory. I know people have met me. They're like, dude, because I met you, I made this decision and I moved away from this thing. I'm like, cool. That's the only hope we can have for one another. Jess says, don't you think they still have the potential to be good? I think anyone has the potential to be good, but probability wise, they won't. So do not live for people's potential. Never live for people's potential. You believe them when they tell you who they are in the moment. And then treat it appropriately, right? Treat it appropriately. So don't hold on. Don't make the work. Don't make the effort. Don't do the work. The only thing people can do now, like Sneeko and stuff, is to go on their own journey, make their own decisions, talk to their own therapists. Like having a girl in their life, a woman in their life that they slightly might think of as like, quote, somebody who can change, none of that is the answer. It's not about gender. It's not about the pick me. It's about them. Them. Only them. And that's it. Like, it doesn't matter what I think about them. It doesn't matter what I hope. Is
not going to change me from the way I deal with this stuff. Okay. I'm just not going to I'm not going to stop. I'm not going to stop giving people the benefit of the benefit.
Chat says, okay, but Ethan, in Hassan's case, he was fighting chat for over a year, and a lot of people got angry rants from Hassan because he refused to see what Ethan was doing. Yeah, but you got to respect that Hassan is a person on a journey. You're not respecting the journey. You're not respecting Hassan for being a human. You're saying, be more than a human. And I'm saying, let the man figure out in his own time In the same way that if I could go back now as the Britney I am today, I would have been able to see, I would never have even collabed with Destiny. I would have realized, oh, fuck this guy. But I obviously needed to go on that journey to learn this life lesson. It's like, give Hassan the right to learn life lessons. Give this man the right to grow up. Give us all the right to learn from our mistakes, because we're always going to be learning. You know what I'm saying? That's all I'm saying. I'm saying, even if chat sees it, even if someone in your chat sees it before you do, so they're not you. So give Hassan the grace, give yourself the grace, because you know what you're doing? Now you're putting the onus on you to always be right. And just remember, like, that's not going to help. Like, it's not going to help you, certainly. Be compassionate to yourself as well through this process, you know. So I understand, like, why the audience felt cocky about it. Like, I get it. But also, we need to all realize, like, this is why I say the world is a reflection of us as a whole. We are actively participating in making life harder for everybody, even ourselves. And that's okay. That's human. I'm not blaming you. I'm just pointing out that it's happening and that we all have to recognize it's happening. And that's it. That's okay. But if we recognize it's happening, maybe we can go through the process a little faster. And every time you learn a lesson, hopefully you get over it a little faster and do a little faster the next time. It's kind of like these 30-day challenges I've been doing. Hey, who would have thought, girls, I'm being hyper sarcastic right now, that if I practice certain things every day, I'd actually get better at them. And the joke is, duh. As I do these 30-day challenges, I'm sitting here like, dude, it's finally hitting me why I couldn't do this my whole life. Why I was struggling with this thing. I wasn't doing it. Like, I wasn't really, really, really doing it. And I started to realize and recognize in myself, like, oh, a lot of people, myself included, we talk about doing things. But when you do it for real, you actually, who would have thunk, sarcasm, it actually gets better. You actually do work. You actually have something to produce, you know? And I think that's what happens with people, you know? Okay.
Of the doubt. God damn, I can't even talk. I'm not going to stop, because I'm not going to stop when it comes to a random chatter. I'm not going to stop when it comes to other content creators with massive audiences. The reason why I'm not going to stop is because there are plenty of instances where people do have their minds changed. Okay? You don't see that. You don't hear about it because it doesn't make the news. It doesn't turn into a massive problem. There is, of course, a point of no return. And I think that we're way past that. You underestimate the resentment that grew after Leftovers ended. He lost a significant portion of his fan base. He blames you. I know he does. I know that now. I did not think that someone who I had a podcast with, a political podcast with, would be so selfish as to basically blame his former podcast co-host for his own exodus of his own audience that he had cultivated, he had developed with a progressive mindset in mind. But remember, the reason why I won't stop being charitable to people and assume that they can change until it becomes like very apparent that they won't. And I have a much higher.
Sorry, chat. We are talking about entertainers. We are talking about YouTubers right now. Let's take a pause. Chat brought up the Freedom Florida is sinking in Gaza. A ship carrying aid to Gazans was hit by drones and is sinking. They are starving the Palestinians out. I was watching, I think AJ Plus, and I was watching other things of babies absolutely starving. Very sad, very devastating. All of it is horrible. And this is the real story. Yeah, with 30 humanitarians on it. Absolutely. So please, like, remember that today this stream is titled entertainment. We're talking about streamers. Even though they're going to talk about Palestine and Israel, they're not really talking about Palestine and Israel, are they? They're talking about their own viewpoints, their own bubbles, how they came to conclusions. Obviously, you know, we're really talking about what it means to be a person, why humans have struggle coming together and healing. I can't even get these two streamers to shut up and get along. You know what I mean? Thank you, Vinixa, for the super chat. As a perfectionist with a large fear of failure, you mean to tell me that I gotta just keep doing the same thing to get better? Sounds fake, but okay. I appreciate the super chat. Sounds fake, but it's so fucking real, huh? I know. Who would have thunk, you know? It's like those TikTok memes of, hey guys, I hate to inform you, it really is sleep and exercise and a good diet. And it's like, fuck. I was kind of hoping it'd be anything but that. Yeah. Hey, who would have thought, you know? So So just a reminder that Palestinians are suffering, that people are dying, that at the end of the day, the thing that is grasping everyone's attention are these two celebrities. But, you know, the hopeful part of this story is that maybe it will make you want to research into Palestine a little bit more, or into any tragedy that's happening globally a little bit more, because it isn't just Palestine that's suffering. You know, I'd love to think that one big tragedy is happening at a time, but it's multiple tragedies happening at the same time. Yeah. And don't listen to me when I say this. Don't, if you feel like you are being crushed under the weight of how ugly people feel and look to you, I want you to take a moment to step aside and recalibrate and reground yourself and come back. Because it's not going to be very helpful to anyone if we lose ourselves by just watching what's happening to people. We have to remember it's not happening to some of us, it's happening to them. And there are ways you can help, but you're not a bad person because you're not, you know, battling every tragedy globally. You are simply a person on a planet, and we're trying to figure it out, and you will die. And in 100 years, all of our stuff will be somebody else's stuff, and it will be somebody else's problem. But I'm not fighting in any capacity for myself or for my life, like my life. I am hoping that anything I do now will be helpful to people after I'm dead. Because the truth is that, like, I lived a pretty good life at one point. I really got to grow up before TV and cell phones. I grew up in a really safe suburb. I had a really good part of my life that gave me a sense of what life could be like for people, and I want people to have that life. And it might not feel that way for a lot of people right now because people can't even pay their mortgages or pay rent or pay groceries. And most Americans are putting food on credit cards, right? I am just hoping that whatever we do now will give the next generation that upbringing. Some upbringing where it feels like you actually can dream of owning a house and putting your kids through college and buying them a car, you know? So if you feel yourself being crushed under the weight of everything, it's okay to take a break. It's okay to turn off the phone. It's okay to recalibrate. It's okay. You know, that's what I wish Ethan would do. I wish Ethan would get off the internet. I wish he would go meditate. I wish he would turn off Reddit, but he's not doing it. So remember not to be Ethan Klein, who is being crushed under the weight of the internet. Yeah? Okay.
Standard for that than most other people is because my entire job revolves around the assumption that everyone is redeemable, that everyone's minds can be changed. That's it. And I hope to lead by example on that front as well. I want you to also take that attitude to your own personal relationships with other people that don't agree with you. That's it. You're very valuable because every single person.
Okay, so that's what I wanted to show you to prep us. That was yesterday's Hasan going back to review 2023 Hasan. So now we have the idea that Hasan made the effort. He talked really well of Ethan. He wanted to believe in Ethan. He fought his audience about Ethan. And now we're moving into the last time Ethan and Hasan spoke, which after today, so today, May 2nd, 2025, they're going to speak today at 12:30 Pacific. So I know it's really early for you guys right now. I'll cover it on Tuesday. Honestly, I could use a breather from all of it. But I'll come back on Tuesday. We'll cover it. But this episode is Talking with Ethan Klein on Israel, Palestine. This was posted to Hasanabi. This is Hasan's official channel. This was November 11th, 2023. Okay, so we're just going to jump in and let's go ahead and give it a listen. And remember, we're not arguing Israel v. Palestine. I think myself and a majority of my audience, we're all pro-Palestinian here, so we don't have to sit here and be like, pro-Palestine, free Palestine. We know. We're not talking, like, we know that. Okay, what we're looking at though is Ethan and Hasan, their communication style, what's so difficult for all of us when engaging with family members, why it's so hard for people to humanize and see one another, and also how the road to hell is paved in good intentions. So somebody might feel like they're humanizing you. Like, do you guys know the story of Mother Teresa? Why Christopher Hitchens, infamous misogynist, wrote a really great book about when he was dying with cancer, what it's like dying with cancer. Like Christopher Hitchens, one of the most ruthless misogynists, also produced some really great pieces of work. And I think that, you know, that's the irony of humanity, right? But you know, he not only volunteered to be waterboarded to prove what we were doing in Guantanamo Bay was wrong, but he talked about Mother Teresa and how Mother Teresa would deny aid to gay people who had AIDS, would deny them food and water and comfortability because she felt like them suffering for their sins or for the sins of others would help expedite their process into heaven. And I think when we have these conversations and we talk about these things, like, she probably felt like she was being this great humanitarian. I mean, she got a Nobel Peace Prize for it. You know what I mean? So when you think about that, you have to think about the way we tell our story, the way we tell stories, what things look like. I never knew that about Mother Teresa. I always thought I really thought well of her because I was raised Catholic. We love Mother Teresa. And then, of course, I had a bubble pop where I was like, she did what now? And she did it in the name of God. She did it in the name of what was humane. She did it with good intentions. So be very careful about people's good intentions. Okay, let's start. Here it is.
You donated to the Palestinian Relief Fund as well, and you know, we got a notice from ANERA. They're talking to all the other organizations as well, but we got a notice from ANERA that like some of those funds have already made its way into you know, medical supplies and food in Gaza. So that's great.
That is awesome. I've been listening to your stream for like an hour. You know, I got a lot of shit from Israelis for donating because they're like, oh, it's just gonna go to Hamas. But you know, I looked into the charity you picked and it is really highly rated. So I'm like, I don't really think this is going to Hamas. There's no way.
You can't even make donations like through to Palestinian charities through like PayPal usually. Like, it's already a very complicated process.
Yeah, and I mean, what choice do you have? They need help. So it's like,
how's the
you
volume?
just pick the best option and hope that it gets there. But I'm glad it is getting there.
Yeah. But yeah, these are also authorized. These are also authorized charities by the Israeli government too. Like, you can't.
Oh, that's great. There you go.
Yeah.
That's even better.
You can't operate inside of Gaza without you know, obviously Israel allowing you to operate inside Gaza.
So basically, I wanted to talk about specifically the one state versus two state solution, and my approach to this.
And also the idea that, listen, as a civilian who doesn't know anything, I don't like this question where people are like, Brittany, one state or two state. Am I the only idiot in the room who doesn't know what the fuck I'm talking about? Like, why? I don't know. The one that makes Palestinians feel safe and the one that frees everybody. Like, I don't know, like, what any of that means. I don't study this for a living. This isn't my area of expertise. I don't know anything about this. I don't know anything about these, like, structural things. And it feels really weird that Ethan Klein is like, I know the answer. I'm sorry, has Ethan studied this? Does he know anything about this? Hassan, I expect him to know more about this because he's a political person, right? But the audacity of Ethan to be like, I want to talk about this. What gives you what gives you, as a person, you can have an opinion. Look, if you ask me this opinion in private, 100% would have an opinion maybe. But in public, as a streamer, I have no fucking idea because I'm an idiot. But as a person who's just regular, sure. Like, I'd say, I'd be like, oh, what does that mean? What's the difference? Can you tell me the difference? Okay, do you know what I'm saying? Like, I think every person can have an opinion about everything, but as a public figure, as a leader, you can't just be opening your mouth, is in my opinion.
When talking about it is purely pragmatic, and I'm trying to be realistic. I think our goals are aligned in that we want peace, a lasting peace, a meaningful peace. I know it seems like impossibly far away, but I do think there are certain starting points that we need to come from and agree on before expanding out from there. And one of them is this issue. You don't believe in a two-state solution. I'm assuming
I used to believe in a two-state solution. I was an advocate for a two-state solution, and I think like there are a lot of other people who also used to be two-state solutioners themselves that have changed their perspective dramatically over the course of the past couple of decades. Due to the settlements and the rapid expansion of settlements. I think Avi Shlaim is like another person that I can immediately call. He is a Iraqi Jew, famous Israeli scholar, part of the New Historians.
First of all, I guess I'll say this. When talking about the two-state solution, I'll agree that there cannot be a meaningful negotiation here without like basically fully dismantling the settlements. And I would even be in favor of offering some kind of, restitution to the Palestinians that were evicted. That's a big ask, obviously. But I do believe that is the right thing to do in this agreement. We can start from there, right?
Well, reparations is not only a like moral right in this situation. I think it also is like logical to do, specifically so that there is like less tension and it's a more viable solution. And last but not least, reparations in this process is also a matter of international law. I guess the only thing that is up for contention is that the Israeli position on the matter is, we'll just hold off on negotiations as best as possible while we do settlements. But also simultaneously is the notion that like actually other Arab states should be giving reparations to the Palestinians as well. Like we shouldn't be bearing the burden of the reparations because it's their fault, because like their position is that the Nakba didn't happen and that, there was no ethnic displacement and the Palestinians voluntarily left. This is the Israeli government's broad position. Obviously, there's varying degrees.
Yeah, obviously, we would need a completely different cabinet as well, because the one right now is, I believe that Netanyahu and his cabinet are one side of the same coin with Hamas. They're both obstructionists and violent and lunatics. Starting with all that established, my question to you is this, and again, approaching this from a fully realistic perspective, what do you think would happen in the region that would result in Israel conceding to a one-state solution?
Oh, that's a great question. I think one of the greatest things that could happen in a one-state solution is that you completely limit, obviously we're talking about like a hypothetical future that is like very far away, but you completely limit Iran's power and exertion of influence over militant factions that are being currently used as a destabilizing force against Israel. The other states are not all that important, the only reason why I talk about Iran is because Iran is the only regional actor that is like genuinely anti-Israel. They see Israel as an expression of Western influence in the region. And of course they will use, like they have Hezbollah, another Iranian-backed movement that became a political party as well as a consequence of like Israeli incursion in Lebanon as well in the civil war. And these are all opportunities for Iran to push back by way of Syria, by way of Iraq, by way of Lebanon, by way of the Houthis in Yemen. They would not be able to utilize these militant factions if there was a permanent peace solution.
So I guess I'll ask the question again, because I'm not sure if it was answered directly. But what do you think could happen in the region that would result in a one-state solution?
I think that the normalization agreements would continue with the Gulf nation states, and that Iran's influence over militant factions within Palestinian forces would wither away because there would be no necessity for their continued violent emancipatory efforts. And
so you're saying that continued normalization of relationship between Israel and neighboring countries.
Yeah, that was already, because a lot of the neighboring countries are already like they're basically American client states to begin with. Egypt being a great example of this. Like the Egyptian economy would not exist without America's like tremendous amount of help. Like we give Israel a lot of money. We talk about that all the time, but we give Egypt even more money than that, right? Like, so Egypt is a great example of this. The UAE and Saudi Arabia, again, regional actors that have their own personal interests in the matter, but like they're not interested in defending Palestinians by any means, regardless. They are absolutely America's solid allies in the region too. So most of those countries are pretty much designed in a way, like if we're talking about Jordan, directly designed with European influence. Again, another country that's like a holdover state, basically. These are all countries that will go along with whatever America's interests are, as long as America can reinforce its hegemonic power in the region and genuinely is interested in developing a new relationship with other regional powers. What's your concern? Let me ask that, because I think that would be better to understand that.
With like Syria, Lebanon, Iran, I believe that this idea that there would be full acceptance of Arab countries of the existence of Israel is pretty idealistic. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, you're saying that you're worried that Lebanon and Syria and other regional actors that are backed by Iran, Yemen being another one, the Houthis, would not accept an Israeli state if Palestinians were absorbed into it and would be a singular state with Palestinians getting like democratic.
Well, it's not that. It's there would need to be some meaningful and something we've never seen happen in that region ever before Israel would say, okay, we're going to dissolve our state. My concern is that people that say they want a one state are basically in a non-starter conversation. It's unproductive almost.
Okay, so I'm gonna share some very anecdotal, very not based on personal conversations I've had with people throughout the years. Because I'm a Syrian, I feel like I'm always the middle cousin between the Arabs and the Jews. I feel like I know everybody, but I'm neither Jordanian or Syrian. I'm Syrian. I'm not Syrian. I'm not Egyptian. I'm not Lebanese. I'm not Jewish. So it feels like I'm always the cousin that shows up that's like connected but not connected, but we're all connected. And what I've heard from anecdotally Israelis and Arabs in general who are non-Jewish is that, one, they're both afraid of each other. 2, that they don't trust each other, and 3, that it's mostly because of the West's boot on the Arab nations' necks. Because if you come from America, anecdotal, you are ingrained, you are brainwashed with loving America first and foremost. My partner thinks it's so funny that we have to do the pledge. He literally is like, you live in a fascist country. You know, he's like, I can't believe you have to do the pledge, you know? And even recently, this Trump administration is like, we're going to make kids and students love America. And if your classrooms aren't loving America, you're going to get defunded. Yeah, bro, welcome to fascism. You know what I'm saying? Okay. But we are so indoctrinated with Islamophobia. We are so indoctrinated with American kid do no wrong. We are so indoctrinated hating Arabs and loving Jews that we spend all of our resources fighting anti-Semitism, but like never Islamophobia until recently. And even then, it's so normalized to be Islamophobic because, well, you know, they are terrorists in quotation marks here. And that's not my opinion. That's the world's opinion. That's America's opinion. So, like as an example, there was a conversation that kept happening after October 7th in my circles where it was like, well, who would you rather be kidnapped by? And I was like, well, you know, there's a part of my Western brain that thinks I'd be safer with Israelis. But the truth, if you look at the documentation, the truth is like, I'm not safe with any groups of men, Israeli or Arab or Hamas or whoever you want to point fingers at. It's like the irony is we're trying to sit here and be like, oh, you'd be less sexually assaulted by Israelis than Hamas. But like the data shows that you're unsafe regardless. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And playing this game of like, which group of men do I feel safer with? Neither. Because it's men. But nobody wants to have that conversation. Isn't it interesting that nobody wants to have that conversation, but everyone wants to have the kind of men that they are? I'm not convinced it matters. You know, I'm not convinced that it matters. So, and it's not because you're born a man. I know I have to say that every fucking stream. It's just because you're raised under patriarchy, which makes you feel entitled to women's bodies or femme bodies because you think whatever. Okay. So it's, you know, nobody wants to have that conversation. But I think from my understanding of it is the Arab world has been decimated by the West. It didn't just start yesterday. They have been playing this game of appealing. This is why, and I'm not going to point fingers at Saudi Arabia, but I've been seeing certain groups of Arab countries appealing to America because they do want a chance to rise in the ranks, but it's always on America's timeline. So America globally is this like scary superpower that keeps its boot on people's neck, and this is their words. And so they will reject Palestinians. So stay with me here. They will reject Palestinians in order to appeal to America, not because they don't love Palestinian people, but because they are doing the very human thing of like, if we don't do this, if we don't listen to America, they're going to come for us next. It's not because they don't love Palestinians, but it's very difficult to see your whole government infrastructure be built on the relationship you have with America and to ask yourself, like, what are we going to do as leaders? And the fact that America is putting them in this position is the problem. Just like the reason, you know, Israel is putting them in this position is the problem. You're putting people in a position to be bad because you are evil. And I don't mean evil in some fucking Hitler way. I think all humans have evil. I'm saying in some very human way, you are exhibiting no wisdom. And that's the problem. Is like, and it sucks because I pay tax dollars to that government. And I don't want to give up that passport, right? And I have family there. And I also have a great love for this land called America, but mostly because of the people in the land, not because of the government, right? It's not like I love America because it's America. I love America because that's where my family is. That's where my childhood memories are, you know? But like, where's the wisdom in the way that America has made it hard for people to be good people? And is that's because the people in American governments aren't good. That's why we just got reports of Joe Biden saying he never made any meaningful effort to stop the genocide. Because these politicians are politicians. Okay? So when we, you know, again, when we're having these conversations, I think it's good to zoom out and remind ourselves so you don't feel overwhelmed too by how horrible the world is. And just remember that even if we solved all the biggest issues in the world, we would still have problems because there are so many more problems to solve. That's why American leftists get called privileged, because they do have the privilege to worry about other issues. But the truth is a lot of those issues are also tied into even basic needs like food, water, shelter. So the other problem is like you're not always privileged just because you're trans, but sometimes being able to, you know, be trans is a privilege. Like it's a hard conversation that's nuanced, and every person's on a different part of that bubble. But that's why I say know your categorization. Know your categorization so you can be grateful for how you're privileged, and then know your categorization so you can see in which ways you are not. Because we're both. Everybody's privileged, no one's privileged. Everybody's privileged, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, all of this to say, it is amazing how we push people in corners and give them no other option but to be cruel. And then we point the finger at them and say, wow, look how fucked up you are and your people are. As if we had no hand in how they felt cornered. And this is how I feel with like white racists and like black communities in America. Like you built a system that gave them limited to no choice. And now you blame whole communities when it's not even. And then the worst part is like the internalized racism within communities are exhibited like that. You know, the school shooter that was black, he said he hated his skin color. He hated being black. And that's white supremacy. White supremacist America made him feel bad for being black. And there's nothing wrong with the skin color you're born with. But the fact that America is so racist, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I try my hardest. And sometimes it can look like you're giving people space to be bad. But I try my hardest not to make people feel cornered to be good. I saw a YouTuber once said that the best way to make a person good is to shame them. I just don't agree. I don't think we should shame people into being good. I think we should encourage them to be good and stand up when they are being bad. But I don't think we should be like, we should socially shame them for being bad. And the way that I do this is open with boundaries. Like I don't put ultimatums on people. I put boundaries down. Hey, I see you. I respect your freedom of choice. I don't respect your opinions. I'm disappointed to see this is the way you are being. I wish you the best. I wish you, you know, food, water, and shelter, healthcare, education, vaccinations. I wish you the best in life. I think this is the end of our time together, but I really wish you the best. And they're going to say, what? Are you ending our friendship over politics? I'm like, I am not ending our friendship over politics. I am ending our connection at this time and for the foreseeable future because we have deviated from a similar path. We were physically walking on a path together and we have deviated, and that's okay. You walk this way, I'm going to walk this way, but you cannot obligate me to walking in the same direction as you. And they're like, why? Like, this isn't, but we're not. We live in the same town. I was like, we might live in the same town, but we are not walking the same streets. Okay. So I love you. I wish you the best. Good luck. Good luck in life. But I really need to move in the direction that coincides with my values. And I'm happy for anyone to join me on that path, but I can't deviate from my path to join you on yours because it's going to take me further from my joy, right? And I don't think Ethan is joyful. And I think that's a part of the problem is like I see Ethan and I think I don't want to be like that. I see Alan Watts and I think I don't want that. All these people that are like, Brittany, do you love Alan Watts? You can watch my video on Alan Watts. No, I don't want to hang out with an alcoholic, cheater, philanderer, and children abandoner just because he's good at pushing Buddhist rhetoric. No, I don't want to walk the path of Alan Watts. All these men who literally tear up their families but get all this credit for literally parroting Buddhist like talking points, girl. No. Just because y'all fall asleep listening to Alan Watts while you're high doesn't mean he was any good. Just meant he was good at thieving, stealing from Buddhists, and pushing their rhetoric, and y'all gave him the credit. Okay? With peace and love.
I find it so unlikely to happen. The other issue is like, so
Can
first
I cut in here real quick before we move on from that? So there already is a one state. Like the way I see it, the actual legitimate reason as to why I don't believe in a two-state solution any longer is because there is a one state, right? And that one state is an apartheid state. It's a constant Israeli occupation in the West Bank and constant control over Gaza as well, which has been a demonstrable failure for Israeli security, obviously. You and I agree on that. But my solution, basically, when I say I want a one state, is it, first and foremost a moral one, because I do want the end to the apartheid, so that Palestinians can have recognition, it can continue a life of dignity, have autonomy, and participate in a secular democratic process. But the alternative is, the way I see it is like, is it a one state that is an apartheid, or is it a one state that doesn't have an apartheid? And
You're
so
saying it could still be the state of Israel.
I don't care what it's called. I have no interest in discussing that. I care more about like human beings that live there.
I guess, it's like this idea that of Israel normalizing relations with all of their neighbors is just like, when can that ever happen? Because if we're going to have a conversation like right now about the best path forward to peace for both groups, that just doesn't seem like. And then here's another aspect. If you were to basically remove the all the checkpoints and walls and barriers and blockades and all that stuff, and again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just coming at it from a very pragmatic perspective. Do you think there would be more or less violence against Israelis?
Wait, I'm sorry. In a one state solution, do you think there's more or less violence against Israelis? Is that what you said?
That's not exactly what I said, but it's close enough.
I think the grand scheme of things, it would be less. Where am I coming from this? Why am I saying?
Well, it's not even that it would be less in the long run, I think, if they work together. Now, if Ethan is saying, do you think the most bigoted parts of Palestinians and the most bigoted parts of Israelis would duke it out and kill each other? I mean, boomer's gonna boom. You know what I mean? But if you mean in the long run, does it work for everyone to literally start trusting each other and stop freaking out about each other? Yeah, that's probably going to be the better solution in the long run. Like, acting like only Palestinians have extremists is the fucking problem. Yeah, take the extremists on both sides that are refusing to ever look at each other like people, and they're the bad ones, okay? Everybody else, though, 99% of everybody else, they just want to fucking pay their bills and take their kids to school. That's it. Can we fucking just take our kids to school, bro? That's all they want to do. Okay? And so, yeah, I think in the long run, it'd probably be better.
Saying this? Well, because there are good examples of an apartheid state obviously no longer existing when we look at South Africa, as a matter of fact. But also on top of that, one thing I want to go back to, you said like Israel's allies or Israel's like regional enemies are they constitute a threat, right? Well, they still currently constitute a threat. A one-state solution just eliminates like one internal faction that is an ever-present danger. And
you're telling me if we were to lift the blockade and the wall around Gaza today, there wouldn't be more violence against Israelis?
I 1000% look to what has happened in the past throughout history in similar formations where there was like a lot of things that we consider to be completely morally unjustified.
I mean, do we not visit Germany now? Have we not seen parts of the world that were a mess? And then do we not fucking, you know what I mean? Like, you act like other countries haven't already done this. Do you know what I mean? Chat says, let me see. What do people do when someone feels shame for witnessing you do the right thing and blame you for making them feel that way? Well, I'll tell you this. I think sometimes what happens with people is like it triggers their trauma. I have a theory that I have a theory that all of us are being triggered. There is an infamous stream that I think I've privated now because it was like, oh my God, I was so obviously triggered. But I didn't realize my PDA was triggered, where a person came into my stream and said, Brittany, Palestinians are suffering. You have to fight for them. And I was like, oh, and I was undiagnosed at the time. I didn't know I was autistic. But I was like, and I was already in private getting so much feedback from my Israeli and Arab friends that I was doing a lot of emotional labor behind the scenes. And I was like, and I felt really, don't tell me what to do. Do not tell me what to do. And I don't like it. I don't like when people are like, if you don't care about my cause, you're a bad person. It physically triggers me. So I recognize that about myself. I'm not proud of that moment. I wish in that moment I knew I was autistic. I wish I knew that was what was happening. I wish I knew I could have said, I will look into it. Give me a second. Like, I wish I could have said, I need a moment. But it was very much like, you say you care about children, but you obviously don't care about children. And I felt so overwhelmed with the feeling I was feeling. And I think if I'm going to be very charitable, that is what is happening to most people when they feel pushed into a corner, is they lash back, right? How far back was that? That was just basically after October 7th. Maybe it was like November. I don't remember. But chat says they remember. And I hate that feeling. I hate it. And I know that if other people are feeling it, it could make sense for me to be like, hey, I think you're feeling defensive, and that's okay when you have a chance. And look, once I cooled down, once I took the time to read books, once I looked into it, it was so obvious that Palestinians were the victim. But it was like I had to do it on my own time, with my own, on my own, like at my own pace. And it felt overwhelming. But obviously one of my biggest regrets was that I wasn't pro-Palestine vocally from day one. But I also can't go back and be different than I was. That's just how my journey went. That's my story, you know? Yeah, Maiden's right. Says, I remember you saying I refuse to say whose baby should die. And I get that totally. And you did do your research and came to the conclusion. I respect you for that. I hate the narrative of like whose babies are more important. And it felt like I was being put in this position. And I think it can feel that way for a lot of people where it's like, I don't like this, you know, but I'm just trying to explain to you that it happens to me. It's going to happen to others. And I feel like I see it. You know, I see it in Ethan. I see it in Ethan where I see a defensiveness where he's like, but what about Israelis? Because he's so afraid of like, and then he's being pushed into this corner. But now, after all this time, and it wasn't like I was coming out on stream anti-Palestinian. I want to make that so fucking clear. I wasn't coming on stream like, I wasn't like fucking flying Israeli flags in my stream. Like that's, I think the difference too, is like Ethan is coming out doing Israeli talking points in a way that's like, people don't like us because we're anti-Semitic. Like I wasn't doing any of that, right? So I'm just saying physiologically why I can feel that way, right? Because as people realize genocide is happening in several places right now, right? Congo and Sudan. Yeah, of course. And those aren't being talked about because America isn't connected to them. I'm finally getting TikToks about those genocides, and I'm finally like, I'm trying to catch up, but it is difficult, right? It's like, you know, you can dedicate your whole life to just Israel and Palestine and never learn about another genocide, and it never is done. So I'm never going to make people feel like you have to know about everything. You know what I mean? About everything. You know what I mean? I don't want to put that pressure on you. I'm just saying that after a while, though, it would be very important to say, I either genuinely can't engage with this conversation, but I, you know, whatever, or saying something to the, like, Ethan's not doing that, though. Ethan is trying to say that he is a knowledgeable person with an ability to talk about a two-state or one-state solution, who feels like he's fighting on behalf of Israelis, who feels like, and it feels like it's now been too long for us to give him enough space, you know? And that's all I'm saying is like, it feels like, hey, dude, now, have you read any of the books? Have you done any of the work? Because that's what I find interesting, you know? It's like, why aren't you just read the 100-Year War? Just read that one book. Because that one book, I was like, got it. I'm locked in. I felt like the Matrix locked into my head. That's a bad example. I felt like I got locked in with all the information I got downloaded, and I was like, I'm on it. I got it. I got enough. I understand enough. Free Palestine. Like, I got it. It was enough because it was from a direct source, a well-known person, educated person, and the audiobook is on Spotify and on YouTube, so you guys can check that out. But I don't know that Ethan has done that. You know what I mean? And so I feel like sometimes it's a matter of like knowing where you are as a person and then knowing how you're impacting a lot of people. I think Ethan doesn't know where he is as a person, and he doesn't understand how he's impacting all these people. Chad says, I don't think he wants to learn. He had so much time. I agree. So now, okay, I agree. I don't think Ethan wants to learn. Genuinely, I don't think Ethan wants to learn. I think that's really common. I think Ethan is like most people. I think he just wants to feel like his anecdotal experience is enough to have an opinion. I agree. And that is why Hassan is allowed to, at this point, not engage with Ethan in the way you would approach somebody with the kindness he did in 2023. Because like now you've made a decision, you're doubling down, you're not going to change. It was like when Destiny said, sorry to the Palestinians, but it looks like you have to be genocided. It's like, you are a political commentator and a horrible person. But the fact that we have this clip, the fact that you in your position of quote power sat on a panel and said the only thing that has to happen is the genocide of the Palestinians. And on top of that, you went to Israel with Lonerbox to do PR for Israel. You know what I mean? That's why I'm saying you can't go to Israel. Do you not think that I've had Israeli friends say, come to Israel? A girl, with peace and love, I'm not coming to Israel. I'm going to Palestine before I go to Israel. Like, I'm not coming to Israel, girl. You think I'm going to get on a plane and show up in Israel, like, right now during a genocide? You fucking crazy. That's a fucking crazy thing for anyone to think that I would go to Israel right now. No, I wouldn't go to Israel if it was the last time I could see my mother before she died. My mom's not in Israel. My mom's in California. I'm not going to fucking Israel. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy. That's like that's a crazy decision to make. You know what I mean? So it's that kind of stuff that it's like, I don't think Ethan is processing it like that because he's just thinking about his feelings. And he's not even dissecting his own feelings. He's not even deconstructing his own feelings. So here we are.
Justifiable. That restoration process often will lead, almost always has historically led to less violence than the violence of the maintenance of this process.
I don't know how useful it is to compare it to like other situations because it does have a lot of unique things. For example, I mean, the government in charge of Gaza, Hamas, is singularly dedicated to destroying Israel and killing Israelis. So how I just don't understand how you can say that removing the wall would result in less violence.
Because Hamas itself is a mere expression and simply one militant faction amongst the sea of Palestinians, 5 million of them living under the occupation, under the apartheid regime.
I know there's a ton of peaceful.
Which is why, by the way, you'll have some Palestinians are protesting against Hamas in the same way that you would protest against anyone representing you that is doing it in a way that you're sick of. You think Palestinian people aren't fucking tired of these men fighting? Like, you think Palestinian people aren't angry? Okay, it's not about Hamas. None of this is about fucking Hamas. This is about the fact that we even got to the point where their representation is Hamas. Like, don't you fucking get it? Like, it's not about fucking Hamas. Like, yes, everyone's tired. They just want this to be over. They want to fucking send their kids to school. They want to feed their children. Their kids are dying. They don't care. They're tired. Free these people. And the only ones who can free these people are not doing it on purpose. They would rather them be dead. And that's Israel. That's Israel. It's not Hamas. It's Israel. You think once Palestine is liberated that they're not going to sit there and be like, okay, thanks, Hamas. Now we're going to deconstruct this as well. You think in 100 years, Palestine might not be the greatest liberal piece of land over there? Like, you know what I'm saying? You're thinking it's the same way people freak out about Islam. Like, you think Muslims aren't just Christians that are modernized? You think there's not going to be gay Muslims hanging out playing guitar, being like, oh, we're the modern Muslim mosque, actually. Actually, you can have, like, pink hair and no hijab at our mosque. Come to our place. That's the future, baby. The future's bright. We're going to dismantle these patriarchal religions. We're going to modernize. Boomers are going to die, and we're going to have a huge shift in the world. And Gen Z better get ready. Okay? Gen Z better get ready. Because you have an opportunity here. You have an opportunity to make life so much easier for people. The boomers are going to be out. What do we got? Like 20 years? Okay, let's go. Okay?
Full Palestinians, the vast majority. But there's also a lot of Hamas.
Yeah, no,
so if you're an Israeli and you see someone saying we need a one state, that's the only solution. The Israelis are going to see, okay, we're going to remove our walls, we're going to remove our checkpoints, and it's going to be suicide bombs in our cafes and buses again within a matter of days.
Well, with the walls and checkpoints, October 7th still happened, right? So it's more of a matter of like whether the ceasefires have.
Hold on, Chet says Gen Z boys are scary, girl. Yeah, but stop procreating with them. Gen Z girls, stop procreating with Gen Z boys unless they're progressive. These boys will fucking die out. They'll be single men who work at grocery stores. We love that for them because, like, God bless them. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? They're not going to procreate. They're not going to have babies. They're not going to raise more bigoted babies. Stop making babies with boys who are bigoted. Stop making babies with boys who are bigoted. Ladies, stop making babies with boys who are bigoted. Let's fucking go.
Worked successfully, and usually the ceasefire process is, even though it is led by Hamas on the Palestinian front, is still relatively successful. That's one thing. But I do think that comparing this to other historical events is important because, I mean, chattel slavery was truly a continued form of unimaginable, untold amounts of genocidal struggle, where African people were ripped away from their homes. You know the stories. But then,
and I will say, most Gen Z boys I meet do and can have misogynistic viewpoints, but a lot of them don't want to go to war. And I think that's important too, is the change in Gen Z boys who are like, I don't want to fucking fight your stupid war, bitch. I'm going to be at home playing video games. I'm like, that's a step forward. I'm going to say that's a win. I'm going to say the less boys who are willing to fight wars, that's a win. Stop fighting wars.
In the Reconstruction process, there was a similar fear that what if black people that were now newly freed would turn around and treat white people in the same way that we had historically treated them. No
So,
such thing
I know-
actually occurred in that process. And as a matter of fact, the real violence that came after that was conducted by the KKK. A desperate attempt to restore the racial hierarchy, the racial pecking order in the South was established by the militant factions.
I know there were isolated incidents of slave revolts where they kind of took over the plantation and killed the master and stuff, but
I mean, like Nat Turner.
has there ever been a organized group of black terrorists that were launching attacks on basically, I mean, civilian, I guess, whatever,
Yes.
but I mean, not, okay, who?
Yeah. And the government called them terrorists and they arrested them because they put them in a corner where that's all they could do.
When?
Well, I just gave you one example, but then also specifically in apartheid South Africa, the ANC in the beginning of the 60s under Nelson Mandela decided to take up violent means because they had tried.
See how he's doing this? See how he's saying other groups, black people don't do this. Why are Arabs doing this? Why is it so specifically Muslim? Ooh, why are people doing this? You see how Ethan is saying there's something so uniquely special about Palestinians? They're so different. They're so different. He's alienating them. All of his language is, I think, from his bubble, right? We all live in bubbles, but his bubble raised him to think, yeah, it's racism, but it's like it's the fear mongering around Palestinians or Muslims in general, right? That they're so different, they're so unique. Ethan's like, I'm not racist. I love black people. Ever heard of black Muslims? Ever heard of Muhammad Ali? Ever heard of, Malcolm X? Ever heard of, I don't know, like, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? It's like, oh, Muslims are scary, but I love black people. I think black people should have liberated themselves. But Muslims, that's what Ethan is doing. It's so exhausting.
And exhausted all peaceful options of civil disobedience. Originally, they chose to oppose the apartheid by engaging in mass actions and trying to get mass arrests to cripple and dismantle the carceral system in South Africa. So that didn't work. Thousands were arrested. Then there was another riot where police opened up live fire and killed 69 black protesters against the apartheid from the ANC. And then after that, there was a shift into more militant resistance against the apartheid. And the violence from the ANC, just like the violence from the IRA in the Troubles, was not only, it wasn't directly against
I was asking about
military
American
positions.
slavery. But the truth is, I've been learning a lot about Israel Palestine, and I don't know as much about like South Africa apartheid. So let's just stay on, I guess, focused on because I just, to be frank, I don't know what you're citing, so it's not helping me much.
Well, the
But,
reason why I'm signing that is because you said, like, is there a way? And I'm giving you historic examples that aren't that far off, whether it be the Reconstruction period, but that is too far off if you don't want to think about that. ANC's actions and activities that put Nelson Mandela on the terrorist watch list until 2008 were against civilian populations as well. They engaged in.
Okay, so listen, I'll concede that it's possible as a result of what happened in apartheid in South Africa. But in Israel, as it is now, I don't think you could convince a single Israeli that removing the blockade and borders checkpoints wouldn't result in immediate violence against.
Well, immediate, sure, but long term, like nobody's like immediate is different. Like things are going to happen. Well, it depends on how they do it. It all depends. If Israel would. Okay. This is why I don't debate politics. You are being so serious right now. You have massacred, bombed, starved, raped a whole group of people. And then you're like, hey, they might be mad at us. I just feel like they're like right now, Israel could do an amazing thing and just say, we have never royally fucked up more in modern times than what we just did the last 2 years. Here is every fucking thing Palestinians have needed: food, water, shelter, reconstruction. Give them their fucking land and get along. But no, Israel has made it. Don't you like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you could do a really great thing right now, Israel, and just fucking stop this madness. But they're not. And then this Ethan is like, yeah, I think it might be a bad idea. Like, I think they might be mad at us. And I was like, yeah, they're gonna be pretty fucking mad. I mean, they're gonna be pretty fucking mad. Chat says, come on, Israel, be the white saviors. I know you can be. And then the history is gonna be like, this is when Israel liberated the Palestinians and gave them their life back. I'm gonna fucking scream. You know that screaming? There's that screaming gif on Discord I love so much. I'll put it in the Discord right now. It's like, bro. Ugh. Exhausted, bro. Hold on. Where is it? I have my favorite screaming gif. I just like, that's how it feels, where I'm just like, oh my God, dude. Okay. This is what I mean when I'm saying, can somebody please have a real conversation about this? Can we please have a real fucking conversation? What do you mean? I'm not sure that's a good idea. Bro, the way Americans are like, I will shoot you if you even step on my property. The way Americans are like, I remember having a conversation with somebody and, I'll tell you, bad story. I was having a conversation with somebody and they were like, if somebody robs you and steals a TV, should you shoot them? And I was like, are they just going to steal the TV? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, I don't care about a TV. It's like, what is it? Like $400? Whatever. And they were like, are you serious? I was like, you're going to kill somebody over a TV? And they're like, yeah, but they could rape you. I was like, no. Now you're changing the goalpost. Are they there to rape me or are they there to steal the TV? And they're like, they're there to steal a TV, but you don't know what they're going to steal. And I was like, or what they're going to do. And I was like, but see how these were different? Okay, stop. Go back to the beginning. What was the question? They're like, if somebody steals a TV, can you shoot them? And I was like, do you see? If that's the question, no, you can't shoot somebody for stealing a TV. Like, no, like, you know what I mean? But also, I wouldn't want to. It's not about the law. It's about the fact that, like, why would you kill somebody over a TV? And they're like, but what else could they do? But you see how that's a different question? You see how now we've changed the fucking question? Obviously, if somebody's going to rape you or hurt you, you go fucking shoot them, bro. Poke their eyes out. Pull their hair like they're fucking Joe Goldblum and just what's his name? Joe Goldberg? Goldberg? Joe from You. If it's Joe from You, poke his fucking eyes out, okay? But see how that's a different conversation? And that's what exhausts me. I think about these bad, but can we be so Goldberg? Thank you. Can we please fucking have a real conversation? What are you asking me? Because this is actually why I love philosophy, because philosophy forces you to talk about ethics and morals, but you're supposed to be having realistic conversations. I hate when it becomes this like, I'm sorry, Jeff Goldblum. Sorry, Jeff Goldblum. I'm sorry. But I hate these conversations when they become like these hypotheticals that feel so stupid. Just like, can we be honest about where it is appropriate to defend yourself and where it isn't? You know? That's what it feels like talking to Ethan. Like, don't you think there'd be immediate, violence? Well, I mean, maybe, yeah. But wouldn't that make sense? You know how you could squash that violence? By giving everything to the Palestinians that they've been asking for. Food, water, shelter. A safe place to live. A community to belong to. And not as second-class citizens, but as equals. That is equals.
Them. That's why I believe it's a non-starter. I don't think you'll ever convince Israel to basically dissolve their state and remake it as one state. I just don't think Israel would ever do that, ever.
I don't disagree with you.
It would never happen. The only way that would happen is beside force, which is why I asked in the beginning, what could lead to Israel willingly dissolving its country and agreeing to create a one-state country, short of just annihilating.
What did he just say?
I asked in the beginning, what could lead to Israel willingly dissolving its country and agreeing to create a one-state country, short of just annihilating massive amounts of Israelis in an all-out war? I don't see any other way.
What?
To do it.
No, the way to do that the enforcement mechanism would be international pressure, but most importantly, the number one most important party at play here, the United States of America. Now, the reason why I talked about the ANC or South African apartheid is because Israel and South Africa were allies in that same time frame, and they relied on one another quite effectively during the Cold War as well. And Also, I personally believe that Israel saw what happened during the South African apartheid and vowed not to repeat those mistakes in order to continue being a ethno state, a Jewish ethno state, and maintain an apartheid structure in occupied territories. That's the reason why I think it's important to draw this parallel. And it's also important because that's how international pressure worked in that situation. It's a very successful and very recent example of an apartheid regime ending with international pressure, specifically with American sanctions. What's up?
You think with international pressure, Israel would dissolve their country and create a one state?
With international,
Well, don't maybe the word dissolve is the one that's fucking with people. You don't have to dissolve it. You can just deconstruction doesn't mean to blow it up. It means to take it apart. You don't have to dissolve, like destroy. You recreate, you change the construct, you make something new. And it doesn't have to come at the, the death of millions of people. Like you reconstruct it, you change it for the better.
international pressure, Israel would do anything that, not even international pressure, but just American pressure.
Chess says, does Ethan see himself as an Israeli in some way? Yeah, he's an Israeli citizen. He wasn't born there, but he is a citizen. He's a dual citizen. He's Israeli and American Jewish, and then his wife is Israeli.
Will do anything that
Like he has family there, guys. It's not like, he wants to protect his family. He has family there. He has a whole life, right? And so I think for him, it's like, hey, what are the chances my family dies because this happens? Which is very human. But what are the chances Palestinian families die? That's the only problem. Your family is not more important than Palestinian families. Everyone's family matters. No one's family is better. All your families matter. That's all you know what I mean? Like, that's all that I'm trying to say is like, your family is not more important than Palestinian families. But I think people do think that. I think that's why people go to war. I think that's why people feel like defending their land. They feel like, oh, I defend my family against strangers or anybody else. But maybe you need to defend strangers against your family because your family sucks.
I think it's important for you to understand that will never happen. And I say this not from a right or wrong perspective. I'm just saying this from pragmatically. I know Israelis. I've lived in Israel. That will never, ever, ever happen. Sure.
So you just said it. Israelis will never work with Palestinians. They will never give up their land. They will never allow Palestinians to feel equal in the country. So if that's the case, then doesn't it make sense that Hamas would want and blame Israel and like Israel is the bad guy? Then isn't that even more of a reason for Israel to be targeted by even the global community? Because they are the ones making it hard for everybody else. Like, who's making it hard here? Israel. That's why the global community is frustrated with them. You're making it hard for everybody. And not just Palestinians, everybody. Israel isn't just affecting Palestinians. They're affecting all of us. You are making this fucking annoying for everybody. So now you not just, you know what I mean? Like you are putting the target on your own back. And I don't get why you're doing this. And you're only doing it because you think the US is going to back you. That is a bold fucking plan, let me tell you. And the fact that you think, what do you think is going to happen in like 50 years to 100 years? Like, what?
Short of all out war. They will never give up the country, ever. It will never. It's 0% chance.
No, I understand that. I know that there isn't a willingness. Here's the counter. Here's the counter from South Africa. You could say in South Africa, the white population was only 10%, right? And even then, the majority, after long and continued pressure campaigns from the international community, actually moved in the direction of ending the apartheid themselves. That is actually a way to counter what I'm saying right now, right? You can just say, well, in South Africa, even the majority white population was on board with ending the apartheid. For one reason or another, whereas in Israel, there's currently no appetite for this whatsoever.
It is 73% Jews in greater Israel. So there's a ton of Palestinians, in West Bank and Gaza and neighboring countries.
Yes.
But it is largely a Jewish state by quite a margin, which makes it, in my opinion, uncomparable. It's not apples, it's not apples to apples with apartheid South Africa.
What do you mean by that?
Well, as you said, the white population was 10%, right?
Oh, yeah. The white population was much smaller. And this is what Noam Chomsky refers to as like Israel's labor.
Yeah. Can you guys explain something to me? Might sound really ignorant because I was trying to figure this out the other day. Because chat says every Jewish person can get a citizenship in Israel. So the reason Israel is weird to my brain, because I don't know how many other countries work this way, but like I'm not a citizen of Iraq just because my parents were born there. Right? Like I don't know, could I go to Iraq and just be like, hey, my parents are from here, give me a citizenship? I don't think so, right? Like that's not how that works, is it? It feels like Israel works in a way that my brain, I don't know how other countries work, because like I remember there was like an Australian country or something where like the couple had their kid outside of the country and then they had to fly back, but they couldn't bring their kid. So I know some places can, but is that a universal thing? Like if you're Japanese American, are you like, do you have a Japanese citizenship, or Japan's like, can you go to Japan and be like, hey, I work here, or I live here, I am here? Like, is that a thing? Like, is it assumed, or do you have to apply? Because, like, again, if you have to apply, like, is that, or is that, you know, because, you know, Israel works in a way that I've never understood. Okay, it can work that way, but you do still have to apply. You have to apply. Yeah, I'm just, like, very confused, because they do want more Jewish people to come there. They want to incentivize young people not to leave. And that feels so weird. Like, that feels so different than any other place. So you do have to apply, and it's based off ancestry, you guys are saying. Yeah, several countries have it. I know countries have it because they're worried. Like, I don't know if you guys know my radical stance, but because I don't believe in, I don't think it's important to keep, like, people, I don't believe that, like, it's important to keep tradition around. I don't think it's important to keep like ethnicity around in the same way. Like I think it's okay to fall in love with people not in your own ethnic group. Like Chaldeans, Assyrians, like we're a limited group of people as well. And we talk about this a lot, how one day we won't be around. Like in the same way, even though we're like an ancient civilization, we are slowly birthing our way out of ourselves. And I just think that's okay. Like I think it's okay that we're falling in love with non-Assyrians. Right? Like especially coming from a place with arranged marriages, it's nice to have so many love marriages now. And a lot of my cousins and myself included, like we're not, you know, not all of us are with Assyrians, right? So it feels weird that Jewish people are working so hard to keep like Jews alive. I understand that from a Holocaust perspective, but I don't understand it outside of that. Like, why are we working so hard to keep anything alive more so than having people have good lives? Maybe this is a very non-religious, I don't have that. I like when I see other Assyrians, like if I go to Arabic stores and people find out I'm Assyrian, they treat, like they are so happy to see me and I'm happy to see them. But also like, we're just happy to see people be safe and loved. And so if our kids marry a non-Arab or a non-Assyrian or we're just happy, they're happy. So it feels weird. Like I remember that American lady who went back to Israel to fulfill her grandma and grandpa's goal of being in Israel. Like, why are we doing this? I don't understand what this is. And I just feels like I'm so outside of the bubble. I don't understand the reasoning. You know what I mean? Just says you should look up how Israel was formed. You mean with Britain and everything? Like, you mean that the 75 years ago thing? You mean like taking European Israelis and putting them, or Jews and putting them in Israel? Oh, the Nakba? Yeah, I don't know too much about that. Yeah, the birthright trip and stuff, like all of that stuff is very, I don't get it. What are we doing? Like, what's happening? And also, I do think it's weird that Trump is getting rid of the birthright claim, like the birthright citizenship stuff. Like, that's so fucking weird. You know? I'm just like, all of this stuff is, what are we all doing here? It just feels like it's all men's plan for power and control. I feel like men are at the root of this, and men are thinking they have to do it for some fucking weird power reason. You know? Okay, I'll look into the Nakba because that is a word I keep hearing, but I don't know how to understand it. So I will put that in my list of things to read about later. And I heard Ethan doesn't believe in that. Is that true? Because that's what I keep thinking of is, does Ethan believe in the Nakba? I'll look into it. Yeah, I don't know. I have so many questions. The Nakba is just the name for what happened in 1948. Oh, okay. Well, I'll still look into it, make sure that I understand it in a better way, because I feel really ignorant about it right now. Even though I think I understand the basic, like the kind of bullet points, I feel like I could know more. Okay, let's go back to this, but I'm still reading chat.
problems being fixed in the aftermath of the first Intifada. Israel relied on obviously the Arab population to do the labor in many cases, like cheaper labor. And after the first Intifada was fought with strikes and stone throwing and the like, Israel moved in a different direction. That's why there's like a new population of a labor force that is often imported in, whether it's Sudanese refugees or whether it's Thai workers that are able to work like a cheap labor force that isn't.
I feel like you're not understanding or not understanding. I don't mean to say it in a condescending way. I don't mean like that. I just mean like you're not engaging with this idea that Israel will never give up its state short of all-out war and violence.
It's not about Israel giving up its state. It's about Israel dissolving the apartheid structure and allowing Palestinians to also be a part of its democratic process.
But then that's what
and
I
I
go
do
back
understand
to.
that there is an appetite. I do understand that there is no appetite in Israel whatsoever from the 73% Jewish population especially in doing such a thing. I totally get that. There's two considerations here, or three actually. One is the moral one.
Okay, wait, hear me out. Discord shared a little thing and said, yes, Japanese citizenship can be acquired through ancestry, primarily through the principle of right of blood. That means that individuals with Japanese ancestry, specifically those with a Japanese parent or whose father was a Japanese national at the time of their birth, can get Japanese citizenship. Okay, so you have to have close lineage. Okay, stop. Hear me out. Can Israelis with no direct connection to Israel but are ex-removed Jews, can they go to Israel? Because I understand if you're a parent, but what if it's like X times removed? Because, the reason I say this is because we watched a video about how Israelis are going to dead Israeli soldiers and taking their sperm to make Jewish babies. And I just feel like, what are we doing? What is this obsession with keeping people? Do you know what does that not feel weird? To be like, we have to keep, do you know what I'm saying? Like, doesn't that feel weird to anybody else? Is that not just like the weirdest thing you've ever heard? Like, who cares about, it feels racist is what it feels. It feels like white people trying to keep white babies alive instead of just keeping babies alive. Like, why are we talking about being Jewish enough or why it's important to be Jewish or keeping Jews alive? Shouldn't we just be keeping people alive? It just feels weird. I don't know. I'm uncomfortable with it. I'm not educated enough, but it feels weird. It just feels like, I don't know, guys. You know what I'm saying? Like, it feels like they don't like Palestinians because they're not Jewish. It feels like they don't trust people that aren't Jewish. That's what it feels like. Feels racist. I don't like it.
I think you and I both agree that is like that would be a good thing, right? Ending the apartheid would be a good thing. The second consideration is a matter of international law, and the last one is obviously what this would look like in practice. So when I talk about the morality of the situation, I think you and I are both in agreement. But when we're talking about it in a practical application, you have concerns, but concerns that revolve around Israel not wanting to do this and fighting against it tooth and nail, right?
They will literally, it will never happen.
I completely understand what you're saying. I agree that as it stands currently, that the Israeli government would refuse to do this. The Israeli population would not be receptive.
Everybody.
Yeah, the Israeli population would not be receptive to it. Ultimately, it still doesn't change the reality that this would be an ethno-state, and there's pressure campaigns that could work from the international community that could sway the Israeli.
I don't think. Dude, you can. It doesn't matter. Whatever sanctions you can dream of, you're not gonna convince Israel to dissolve their borders. You have to and again, I'm not justifying. I'm not defending anyone. I'm only speaking pragmatically about where do we start talking.
It feels like if Israel gets their way, from my very ignorant perspective, that they will take over the whole land, but it's their way or the highway, meaning Palestinians are not going to get a say in how Israel is run because they're not Jewish. Feels very fucking like racism to me. Like, white people get a say what happens in America, but black people can live there, but you can't get a say. Am I fucking stupid? Is that what I'm hearing? Like, is that my understanding? I feel so stupid. Like, is that not what's happening? It feels like that's what Israel wants. Like, Israel wants to be in charge of everything, and you can stay there, and they'll let you work there, and they'll treat you nicely, but you don't actually get a say because you're not Jewish. What is happening? Like, I know my chat is saying you got it, but do I get it? Like, is that not bad? Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, that's the Zionist perspective that we're all very confused why Ethan is promoting. Like, why are you promoting this idea that like this is the goal? It seems so obviously like bad. Why are we even promoting it? Why are we even trying to keep Israel alive at that point? Like, in not as Jewish people, but as a government. Like, at that point, that's so, why, you know, what are we even doing? I feel stupid. It feels so obvious.
About this conversation of peace. Another thing you have to understand is that a ton of the Israeli population are people who escaped the Holocaust. And when they came down there, they bring generations of paranoia and persecution. And so there is, I believe, a widespread belief held by nearly every Israeli that if the borders would dissolve, if the borders would come down, there would be a massive genocide against Jews. And that they believe that.
Yeah, they do believe that but the fact that they're doing it first just proves that that's what I'm saying. You're doing it though. You're the ones doing it though. You're the ones doing the genociding. So yeah, even if they would genocide you, like you're not even better than them. You're acting like you're better than them. You're acting like we have to genocide them first because they're going to genocide us. That does not make you the good guy. That literally does not make you the good guy.
And I don't know necessarily to what extent that might be true, but I can tell you for sure that that's what they hear when they think one state is basically a bunch of Israelis being massacred. That's what they hear. That's what they see. And that's why it will never happen.
Okay. So,
But I also this is Brittany's personal opinion. Like sometimes people are like, Brittany, what if America doesn't look like America in the future? Like, okay. I just think life moves on. Nothing stays the same. I don't think humans are an animal species evolved over millions of years that allow for that. America won't look like America in 100 years. It will look different, as it should. New people will come, new cultures will come, new vibes will happen. I just think this obsession everybody has to keeping everything alive is like, I'm not playing that game with you. And I've heard progressives make it too, where progressives want to keep like tradition alive. And I don't care. Like, you can do that. I think that's beautiful. I just don't care personally. I think things should change. Things should modernize. We should move on. Things should move into the future. But I think that should look diverse and, you know, deconstructed. I just, you know, it should look the way it makes sense. I just don't, yeah, I'm not interested in keeping like legacy alive or some shit or like, I don't know. I think that's why I didn't like that Stephanie Lang, her video about like, keep your ethnic nose. It came from your ancestors. Okay, but like, it's not that deep. Like, it could be that deep if you need to deconstruct Eurocentric beauty standards, 100%. I absolutely use that to deconstruct my own sense of beauty. Like, my nose is ancestral and it's beautiful, and my mom has this nose and my aunties have this nose and it's gorgeous. But also when you deconstruct even that, you deconstruct further and realize like that doesn't even matter. We're all just people living for a very short time on earth and then we're going to die. The best thing we could do is learn how to feed, clothe, and give people healthcare. Like, the best thing we can do for humanity is make it less violent. But sometimes I think people justify violence by keeping traditional alive. Like, we have to defend our tradition, so we're going to kill people because of it. And it just feels like, what are we doing? Hitler did that. Jews are doing that right now with Palestinians. Stop. Nobody fucking cares. Stop trying to keep your thing alive. Just try to keep everybody alive. Not your people. Like, your people don't matter the most. Everybody matters.
the paranoia that people have, or Holocaust survivors have especially, is, I guess, important for the practical application of the matter. But I'll give you an example of like the government moving in a direction that the people actually don't want the government to move in at the behest of the United States, or even sometimes moving in the direction that people don't want.
Chat says, what would you say to future Gen Zers who struggle to see a future for themselves in the current state of the world? It won't be this way forever. The current state doesn't exist tomorrow. It changes every second of every day. And, you know, sometimes it's not about you. Sometimes it's about Gen Alpha, right? Gen Alpha's here. We can work to make a better future for them. Sometimes it's not about them. Sometimes it's about Generation Beta, also here. We can fight for them. Like, it's not always about us. Sometimes it's about them. And the them, like, we have to make sure we're also not blinded too by trying to, you know, the road to hell is paved in good intentions. We should try to be less bad. We should try to be better people. We should try to be more optimistic, because kids are watching you. Kids are watching you, and they are deciding how their future is going to go based off the adults around them. My suicidal tendencies and attempts started when I was 8 years old because I was listening to how the adults around me talked about gay people. Kids are listening to you. They're paying attention to you. They're watching their older sisters, their older brothers, their older siblings. They are looking at you like, man, I really want to be like them when I'm older. So make sure you are working on yourself because they are listening and watching you and they are learning from you. And they are making decisions right now at 6 years old on whether or not they should kill themselves because, hey, at least if I grow old enough, I can be like my great older cousin, so-and-so. Because look at their life. So many of my older siblings or older cousins, they were good and bad references to what my life could look like in the future. And for my cousins who had a better life, I thought, okay, I just need to be old enough to be free like they did. I just needed to get out of my parents' house. I just needed to do this and that. So you make sure that you are also not giving up and that you realize like we're all growing into the adults that kids will be paying attention to. You know? Kids are looking at you even when you're in public and they're strangers to you. That's what I would say.
Wanted to move in, but then still engaging in it. Like the rapid settlement expansion is something that is often contentious and has been very contentious throughout time. Government doesn't really factor into considerations like what the broader liberal Israeli society thinks about the matter. They just keep building the fucking settlements and populating these areas, right? And the opposite has happened as well. In a time when, according to the Israeli Democratic Institute polling, I believe 80% of the Israeli Jewish population believes that there's no need to consider Palestinian lives in the last siege in Gaza. The government has taken steps that some people would find to be inappropriate in opening up humanitarian corridors so that you can bring in supplies. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant was asked a question in the aftermath of the first day of the Rafah border opening so that they could bring in trucks and trucks of supplies into Gaza. They were asked, why are you doing this? To which Yoav Gallant responded with, what can I do? America told me I have to do this. In 2021, Joe Biden called up Netanyahu.
And I would also say, and this is the greatest skill I learned through philosophy, when you learn the skill of not pointing blame and fingers and you just learn to fix what's wrong with you, you realize it's asking a lot of people to be better. It is actually really difficult to be better. So that's why I only request that people be less bad. I'm never going to ask you to be better than you are. I will ask you to be less bad than you are. And that makes it easier to process why the world is the way it is. Because we held on to an attachment that it would be different than it was. We are an animal species evolved over millions of years. We're not special. We just are. And this is it. This is what we've created. Like the beaver builds a dam out of a tree. We built this out of the earth. Kind of cool. Kind of crazy. No one ever said it was going to be perfect. Unless your script told you it would be perfect, and then your script is lying to you.
What's up?
Letting humanitarian aid through Rafah crossing, comparing that to dissolving your sovereign border. Come on.
No, of course. It's not a one-to-one comparison at all. I'm simply stating that something as minor as that all the way to ending a siege is entirely up to the United States and what the United States is letting Israel do and allowing it to do.
What pressure could the United States exert over Israel that would be so powerful that they would say we have to dissolve our country?
First of all, I don't believe that this would be a dissolvement of Israel as a nation state. It would simply allow the Palestinians that are currently under occupation to be also a part of the democratic process. And it also would not happen overnight either. But if you're asking me the question, it's sanctions. It's the shutting off the money faucet. It's shutting off bombs. I mean, we were just looking at it. You said you were watching the stream earlier, so you probably saw this already. But like, we shipped 2 different mobile Iron Dome trucks into Israel. We are consistently shipping in Mark 84 rockets into Israel so that they can directly use this on the offensive, by the way. Like, this is not even a defensive weapon that they have. This is specifically so.
And remember that this administration isn't even helping the Ukraine people because he's trying to stop them from dying. He wants their minerals. That's why they just agreed to a mineral deal. Like, don't forget that a lot of these leaders in these countries, they're playing a big game of Catan with us. And that's not to put blame on them. It's to make it clear what role they're playing, what category they're in. And I do think we outnumber them. I just don't think we understand what that means because it's really hard to be a good person. I actually think one of the hardest things to do is to be a good person because I think you're an animal. Like, we're animals in a biological sense. I think it's really hard to be a good doggo, but I think all doggos are good doggos. I think all people are good people, but it's really hard to be a good doggo. And I know that's really hard for people to understand because humans don't think of themselves as animals, even though you are literally an animal. It's just like you believe God put you here. You believe all these things about yourself. But I think for myself, it's easier for me to cope with like the world. Because like, look, I'm at work right now. But when I'm not at work, Okay, I really try to vibe because I know I'm just like here. I'm existing like the little like bugs on my eyeballs or my eyelashes, we're just vibing. And like then we're all going to die. And it's, we can only do as much good as we can in quotations as, I just want you to feel like you can breathe on a planet that is suffocating because you can. Don't kill yourself because of these white men, and certainly don't kill yourself because of these wars. If you can do anything, give yourself another day. But if you lose that battle, you're not a bad person. You were just you. You were here, and then you were gone. And for the time you were here, you were worthy of so much more. You were worthy of love, and you deserved everything from the basic needs, from housing and clothing and food and all that stuff. People do deserve these things. Even the worst people deserve these things. And that comes from a construct that we created through evolution. And outside of that construct, we deserve nothing because we simply are. But isn't that beautiful that humans evolved to create a construct where they feel like you deserve compassion? Which means to suffer with. That's what compassion means. And that's why you can't have universal compassion. I can't suffer with a lot of people if I'm going to be real. I really struggle to suffer with like white nationalists. I just don't get it, bro. I can't suffer with you, bro. But if a white nationalist, their kid gets hit by a car, I can suffer with you. I can be there with you. I can have compassion for you. I can't really have compassion with the whole like, I think I'm better than other people. Like I can't have compassion for you. But I can have compassion if something happens to you that I'm like, oh, that's really sad. That's devastating. I think we believe we're like universally compassionate or universally empathetic. We're not. And it's also a skill. You have to learn to evoke this part of your humanity in others. This is a story I've told 1,000 times. I'll tell it really quickly for new people since there's a lot of new people here. I worked at a veterinarian office outside of high school. So I graduated high school. I was homeschooled till I was 15, did public school for 2 years. Then I went into the workforce, okay? I did community college for 2.5 seconds, but that doesn't matter. I worked, okay? I had like 3 jobs. I was working, I was reading, I was at this job as a vet. I was just like a little helper, okay? I was nobody important. I was just like a kennel kid, whatever. It was my lunch break, and I walked out of the vet to go to lunch, 30-minute lunch. And there was a woman, one of our clients, sitting outside the door, and she had this Great Dane with all these tumors on him. And I was like, hey, what are you doing? And she goes, I can't go in there. And I was like, okay. And I was like, you're just like, you're struggling? And she goes, yeah. I walk in, I go, hey, the woman is out there. And she's super struggling, right? Like she needs help. You guys need to bring her in to put her dog down. She can't bring herself into the office. And the women were like, well, she'll come in when she's comfy. And I was like, okay, I don't mean to be like autistic or anything, which I did not say because I was not diagnosed at the time. But I was thinking like, you're not getting it. She's fucking having a hard time. So fine. I walked out and I sat down with her on the floor. And this is just because I'm a big sister and this is just like the person I am. But like, this is just to say not everyone has universal compassion. But I know what it's like to lose a doggo. And I had a Great Dane growing up. So I was like, oh my God, girl. So I sat with her and I said, I have a Great Dane and her name is Midori and we love her. And it's really hard. I couldn't even imagine putting her down because my Great Dane wasn't dead yet. Okay. And I sat down with her and she was crying. And I was crying with her. I'm a very emotional girly. Okay. And we were sitting there and I was like, we were comforting each other. And I said, when you're ready, I'm going to take him in for you. And she goes, okay. And I was like, are you sure you don't want to be in the room when he goes down? And she goes, no, I don't want to be there. And I said, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take him in. I'll be there with him. And she goes, okay, that means something. And I was like, yeah. And I took her doggo in and we put him down and I put him in a baggie and I sent him off to the little doggy funeral home, And I just remember looking at my coworkers and thinking, why are you not understanding what this woman is going through? And I realized in that moment that I wasn't better than them. I was just different. I was in a different category. And because I had all of these things that led me to being the person I was at the time, it gave me the skills to meet this woman where she was. I'm not better than them. It's not about being better. It's about recognizing that my lived history gave me the right tools to see this woman in a way my coworkers couldn't, which allowed me to show compassion, which allowed me to do this on my lunch break, never got my salad. That's a joke. I'm making a little fun joke because it's a sad story, okay? Brought this doggo in and was there, And again, this is the problem is people start thinking, oh, I'm better than people. Oh, I have more compassion than people. And nobody has compassion. Everybody has compassion. Nobody in that moment had it. So I did it because I could do it. When things happen, you can't always universally be the person who can show up. You're not always going to do it correctly. But the greatest thing you can do is realize that you are going to be needed at some point. And you are going to have a skill set that nobody has, that they're going to be like, we need you to be the one. And that's when you get that opportunity. We are not looking for the opportunities. We are simply standing up to the plate when we know we can help. That's what we're doing. And it feels right now in the world like everyone is so cruel and everyone is so awful. But I would just like to remind you to recontextualize and deconstruct that. If you genuinely think the world is a horrible place, let's deconstruct that and recognize that it might be, but also, do you know what kills me? Oh my God, do you know what kills me? Is I think about my ancestors, and I don't know how these people stayed so fucking joyful after everything they had to face in Iraq. Like, I don't know why they stay so joyful, but I think it's the same reason Palestinians do. Okay? I think Palestinians stay joyful, some of them, most of them, because like what else is there to do? What else do you want them to do? Not everybody, and you're not obligated to stay joyful when you're being, put in a horrible situation. But I found this family in Gaza who just like, their videos make me die, like cry, laugh. I laughed so loud, joyful, seeing this TikTok from this family. And then my heart sank knowing that this is what they have to be doing to also get us to pay attention and also like give them a reprieve from everything happening. Okay, you ready? And I was like ugly laughing. And then I was like, oh my God, who's this family? And then I was like, oh man, they're just like a family, bro. They're literally just a family on TikTok trying to create content that will get our attention. And look, they still have to do homework. They still have to do things. They still have to do their basic shit. When my kid thought a G-side meant he'd have no homework. No, because you're not giving up. They are steadfast. They are still working on things. They are still doing the same shit you take for granted every day while being genocided. Because people in America, we think a genocide means they can't do anything. A genocide still means they get up every day and they take care of themselves to the best of their ability. While people are starving, while people are being bombed, they wake up and they tell their kids, you still... Oh, I'm going to cry. Okay. The adults in the room still have to tell the kids, you gotta get up, you gotta go to school, you gotta do things, because that's what the adults do. And all I'm trying to say is there is no adult in the room when it comes to Ethan Klein. Okay? Like, Ethan Klein, thinking he's the adult in the room, like, please be serious, Ethan. He's so unserious. He's just so unserious. And these people are getting up every day and just giving hope to their kids. They have to give hope to their kids. So, get ready to be the adults in the room that finds a way to smile while you're being fucking genocided so your kids don't fucking lose hope. Okay, let's go back to the fucking millionaires talking about Palestine.
So they can engage in offensive posturing in the Gaza Strip. So without America's involvement, Israel would not be able to behave in the ways that it has so far. America could just as easily tomorrow, with one phone call, call Bibi Netanyahu and say, enough, cut it out, you're done. Joe Biden has done this in 2021. Even Ronald Reagan has done this in the past. George W. Bush has done this, or George H.W. Bush, sorry.
Your statement is that if America stops selling Israel bombs and arms, then they will I say dissolve the country because, again, that's how the people in Israel are going to view this. It won't be the same place, you know, for them. And to them, their security is paramount.
We're not selling the weapons, brother. We're just giving them weapons.
Okay, so you don't think that Israel could get bombs from other places?
Certainly, but Israel is our ally, and Israel relies a tremendous amount on U.S. aid, right? To the tune of $4 billion, but also Israel engages in a lot of trade. For example, in 2013, Israel was offering weapon schematics, U.S. weapons to.
I'm such an ugly crier. You know what? No regrets. Sorry. I'm very emotional this week. I've seen so many fucking Palestinian TikToks. I'm going to die. And I'm just watching them. I'm so privileged. I'm just watching them. Camilla with the super chat. This Brit, I really enjoy what you put on the world, out into the world, and I respect your work. You consistently inspire me to be a better woman. Thank you for being vulnerable with us.
China. America stopped that, right? So like Israel does have global partnerships, but many of those global partnerships are still almost entirely managed by the United States. So the way I see Israel is not necessarily like an independent nation state, but simply an American state, a very important state too, like not like fucking Montana, like an actual American state that Americans care about. You know, more like New York.
We love the people from Montana. We kid them, but we love them.
But so for that reason, America has complete control over Israel's trade relationships. There are obviously times when, some Israeli actions will over leverage or overextend itself that like Americans will get mad at. But ultimately, they're still fine with it. Like Pegasus. Are you familiar with Pegasus is?
Yeah, of course. And Israel, and I'm sure there's lots of other countries that would happily love to use that in exchange for any fucking thing that Israel wanted. If there was to be their ties to be.
Thank you, chat. Thank you, Ash, for the super chat. Says tears are good. Tears are good. It just feels stupidly privileged to be sitting here in my fucking nice apartment crying. You know? Like, don't super chat me. Go super chat some Palestinians. You know what I mean? Like, just feels so fucking privileged. You know? I'm my stupid fucking fan. I know it's fabulous. I know we're all gay here. It's fabulous. I know. But doesn't it? This is the best I can do. You know, sucks.
To be severed.
Yeah. So like America has been very critical of the
Thank you, Maiden. Here for the tears. Thank you.
Pegasus software, right? Like,
and look. Ultimately, this is what I'm trying to say. Fucking have a cry. Have a cry about how hard the world is. And get up and keep moving forward. Like, cry about it, go to therapy, deconstruct, meditate, masturbate even, do whatever it takes, girlies. But, like, it's not like we're not crying. You know, there's strength in tears. And I think that's what I'm trying to say. Hey, the world is very difficult. Cry it out. Ain't nothing wrong with some tears. I cry when I watch One Piece. You know what I'm saying? I literally cry when Luffy music comes on. And I'm like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not telling you not to cry. I'm telling you cry because there's no shame in it. And like we get up and we still go to work and we still pay our taxes. We still keep moving forward. You know? Okay. Love the JP Jordan Peterson tiny bit. Wait, am I pulling a Jordan? Look at me. What about all these men? what are we going to do without all these incels? I can't.
Because it's so invasive, the surveillance technology. And yet America also uses Pegasus. So like, it's almost always this like, hey guys, don't do that. And like finger wagging publicly while simultaneously helping Israel continue doing whatever it's doing. Because it's
America's influence over Israel is great, but
I think it's absolute.
I mean, Israel was fighting to defend itself before America gave a fuck about the region. So I genuinely think that it will never happen. Even if America was like, I'm cutting your aid, this relationship is over unless you open the border.
What did he just say?
Fighting to defend itself before America gave
Listen.
I mean, Israel was fighting to defend itself before America gave a fuck about the region.
Against who? Who is Israel defending itself against? You know? When Palestinians tell the story of Israel, they explain it like you're playing with in your backyard and hanging out, and a person comes on vacation, is like, hey, can I like hang out with you? And you're like, sure. And then they never fucking leave. So when he says like Israel's always been defending itself, yes, from the Israeli perspective, you are defending yourself. From the Palestinian perspective, you overstayed your fucking welcome. Go back to your place. Like, that's what people aren't understanding. Like, are you invested here? Are you invested in the land? Or are you just here to take property to build up your own little like Mecca or some shit? You know, your own little like vacation spot. It feels very much like moving into a neighborhood and making a house of Airbnb. You're ruining it for the locals, dude. And now like Ethan's like, oh, we are locals now. Yeah, but you're doing everything in your power to make sure the original locals have no place. You know? That's what's so frustrating. Chad says, have you watched this discussion before? I remember watching it live, and it just shows how awful Ethan's opinions really are. I had been both a fan of H3 and Hassan. I do remember watching this before, and I don't really remember what I thought about it. If I'm gonna be, did I even watch it on stream? I can't remember. I do remember watching it though, because I remember feeling really bad for Ethan. Do you know that? I remember feeling so bad for Ethan because it felt like he was really being impacted and everybody was coming for him, but it also felt like get off the internet. And I had a great amount of compassion for Ethan at this time, like an insane amount of compassion. And then I lost it because then I had no way to suffer with him because I was like, hey, we get it. Very sad. He just kept doubling down. He just to this day keeps doubling fucking down on Israeli talking points. So I did feel very bad for him. But I think like Hassan, like everybody else, we were like, okay, we get it. Can we make this not about you now? And he's like, no. And I was like, okay. Okay.
Region. So I genuinely think that it will never happen. Even if America was like, I'm cutting your aid, this relationship is over unless you open the borders and create this new state. I think
before America it was the British. Before America, I think it was the British. And
no, after the British were gone, after the Palestinian Mandate, and the British said, fuck this, I don't want to deal with this shit. The Jews were fighting to defend themselves and their new place in that area from the very beginning with no help from anybody.
That's not true. They were shipping in weapons. Even under British occupation, they were still shipping in weapons illicitly.
This is after British occupation. I'm talking about like...
This is like such an interesting framing, you know, and I get it. Like, at what point do you just move on and not give land back to people? I think that's a very difficult conversation. And I'm very modern in this sense where I'm like, it's all of us or none of us, guys. All of us or none of us. So, you know, it's not about like giving land back. It's nobody's even telling the Israelis to, we wouldn't even need Israelis to go away. We're saying like, can it all be all of us or it's none of us? And Israel is like, it's either us or not, or none of us. And do you see the difference? Israel is like, it's either us or none of you. And Palestine's like, it's either all of us or none of us. And I'm about all of us or none of us. That's why I'm like, it's all of us, all of us. And like, that's not the, you know, and I get it. I've heard from some Jewish people who have connections with Israel, who have a family in Israel, who say like anti-Semitism is really bad and they feel like Israelis can't go anywhere. You know what? I'm going to bring up something that is definitely not in my wheelhouse. So feel free to like, you know, I've been watching this thing happen on TikTok that feels very outside of my understanding, but I think I get it, where this Palestinian woman came for Black women. It was very messy. And I've heard everyone's arguments. And after listening to everyone's conversation, I feel like I'm going to side with the Black women because I think they were making a very important point that was missed in the conversation. Like, it was a group of church people who came to Palestine to help, but the Black women there were saying, oh, we're experiencing racism. And the Palestinian people were there saying, you don't get to experience racism here because here Palestinians are worth less than Black people. And I'm like, oh. And then they were saying that in this part of the region, Israel, Palestine, it was very confusing. They're like, Black people don't have racism here. I was like, oh, I think this is a global phenomenon. Like, there is a global phenomenon of like certain groups of people having racist interactions globally. And I was like, this conversation feels, does anyone know what I'm talking about? Is anyone on my side of the TikTok? Anybody on my side of TikTok? I didn't cover it on stream because it was like very weird. And I was like, what's happening? Like, why are we having this conversation? Racism can be had anywhere. I don't know why you're putting it on it was a very weird. And then it became, this is why Black communities aren't supporting Palestinians. It was really strange. I might have to go over this so we can talk about it later, but like, it was weird. Techno, thank you for becoming a member. I appreciate that. It was really weird. Chad says this was debunked, and it was found out the story was actually about Black people in Ukraine. The one that just happened, it just came out. Really? I feel like the story, I followed like 20 TikToks on it. This was coming from an Ethiopian woman. I don't know. I can't tell you because we're not, but I was listening to it and I was trying to figure out like, because, okay, let me relate this to Israel, Palestine. Jewish people feel like no matter where they go, people hate them, that they have no home. But I want us to process this out loud. What does it mean to have a home? Do you know what I'm saying? What does it mean to have a home? And I think because like I'm an American to some extent, I don't know that I have a home anywhere. But I've been wondering this a lot. Like Jews feel like they don't have a home, they need a home. I don't know what that means. What do you guys think about that? Like anti-Semitism is real, but it's the same. I've been wondering about that. Like, do you guys feel like you have a home? I mean, I just feel like I have a home. Like my parents immigrated to the US, that's their home. Like my parents were able to leave Iraq and make America their home. And that's really interesting, like their real home, like they want to die there. And so for me as an American, I feel like that's definitely my home. But I'm trying to make Croatia a home as well. I just don't know if it's a home I'm going to die in. So I've been really thinking about this a lot. Like, what does it mean to feel like you have a place to go to? But even in America, it feels like they don't want queer people. And so it feels like, yeah, like I don't feel safe in America in that sense. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like Jews feel targeted, which they should for anti-Semitism, but Arabs feel targeted because of Islamophobia. So I don't know how this relates to other people, and I've been thinking about this a lot lately. What does it mean to feel like you need a home to be made for you? Because like I'm gonna be real, I couldn't like if they build a gay Israel, but that's not Israel, a gay state, a gay country, would you guys move there? Like for real? If there was a country that was like, we're gay, everything here LGBTQIA, would you move there, Israel? Like, would we move there? Chat says Israel, I mean, I guess we moved to San Francisco, in Seattle. We moved to play. Like, would that feel like home? I don't know. And that's what I'm trying to figure out. I don't know. Like, it feels weird to live in a place where everybody is literally the same, but also kind of nice if it's just like how you were raised. I can see the benefits and I can see the disadvantages. I think yeah. I don't know. Just some thoughts I was thinking of. Some thoughts. Discord said, as an American, our national identity isn't based on ethnicity. The only place that feels like home to me, for the most part, is specific parts of America. My ancestors, the slaver and the enslaved, have been here for centuries. Honestly, maybe not because is the gay state racist or sexist? That's a great question. Is the gay state racist or sexist? Because gay people can solve problems. Is it misogynistic? Is it run by gay men? That's the question. And I agree with you that only certain parts of America feel like home to me. All of America, like I've traveled around the US twice solo. I felt really safe there. But I was like really prepared. I would say that only California feels like actual home to me. I lived in Arizona and that's interesting. And I lived in Seattle and that was interesting. And I've lived in Dallas and that was kind of interesting. Didn't live there very long. But yeah, I think California will always feel the most home to me, personally. So it's kind of interesting, even America. Like, I would not feel at home in New York. Like, I visited. It doesn't feel like home to me. Even San Francisco doesn't feel like home to me. So I mean Southern California, or in LA, not LA, Orange County, Riverside County, San Diego. That feels like home to me. But LA doesn't feel like home to me. You know what I mean? So like, what does home even mean? That's what's interesting about this idea. So when Jews say like, we need a place, yeah, that's interesting to me. We need a place because we don't feel safe anywhere else. That's hard for me. I'm like, I have to process that idea a lot, What does that mean? What does that look like? Yeah. Baden says home feels safety and comfort. Home means safety and comfort. Yeah, I don't know. What does that even mean too? Safety and comfort. I've been trying to deconstruct that too. What is safety and comfort? What does that mean to me? What does that look like? What does it smell like? What does it feel like, you know? Chat said that's Zionism, girl. Well, that's what it feels like, girl. That's what I'm saying. That's what it feels like. To say like Jewish people need a place to go that's safe feels like, where is that coming from? Why are you saying that? What does that mean? What does that mean? How does that relate to, like, I need to know what that means. Yeah, that feel like that's a very interesting position to feel like you could be in, you know? All right.
So
1948. Who was supporting Israel in 1948?
So the Haganah, Irgun, and Lehi brigades that were at that point almost always considered like a standing army during the Nakba were fighting against predominantly villagers with like that had been disarmed by the British. The Zionist brigades at that point, even before England pulled out, were being trained by the British forces, while the other side was being disarmed by the British forces. That's why there was an asymmetry to the violence even then. Over the course of the years, but specifically during the Nakba as well, 6,000 Israelis died, whereas 15,000 Arabs died, with 750,000 Arabs being Palestinians being expelled from their homes. The reason for why this happened wasn't because, you know, you had rugged fighters or whatever. I mean, they were great fighters too, but it was also because it was a broadly civilian population that was being slaughtered, and by a militia force that was trained, had weapons, had even a plane, had armored personnel carriers, whatever it looked like back then, and had much better weapons as well. So,
I mean, listen, this stuff is just not comparable.
Chad says, I think Hassan needs to use simpler language. I will never not think it's funny that Americans need the president to speak at like a 7th grade level. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to even gauge what that means. And this is what I say, like in my free time, I'm really listening to like a lot of philosophy lectures. I forget like, how does a normal person talk, like an average person? And I know, chat, I know you're not saying it in a condescending way, for sure. It actually would be incredibly helpful for people to speak simply. Actually, you know what a good study of this is? Guys, help me. What's that YouTuber's name who makes the really bad skit videos that are Darman? You know the Darman guy? Not a great guy from my understanding. But you know the Darman guy? His videos do so fucking well because it's so simple, the English and the storyline. It can be understood by people who barely speak English. And that's why it's so popular. So actually bringing it down to a language that's simple opens up the opportunity for more people to hear you. Funny enough, like, yeah, that is actually a true thing. And when I was just telling my partner the story, when I was a little kid, we had those TVs with the antennas, and I would move the antenna so I could watch this Japanese like soap opera, and I couldn't understand it, but I was like, I know exactly what's happening because it's very like obvious, right? Soap operas are very fucking obvious. That's why my mom was always like, soap operas are for dumb people, kind of. And I was like, yeah, because they're really easy to understand, but you're not dumb because you like them. What she was trying to convey is like, they're so simple, it feels like I'm being made fun of. But that's why they're so digestible. And that's why I used to think that of reality TV, like, oh, reality TV is like so stupid. But it's actually so simple that it's universally digestible. So it's like I could watch this show and not know a lick of Japanese and still feel like I know exactly what's happening. Right? And so I do think there would be some benefit to all of us speaking in a more universal way, but it doesn't come natural to us. We don't know what that looks like. It doesn't come natural to us in a sense. I remember, oh my God, do you guys remember this story? I was in a Seattle low-income building at one time, and I was renting there, and I went down to the office to talk to the front lady, the desk lady, and a family was there, a Hispanic family, and they were struggling with communication. And I was like, I got it. Like, can I try to communicate with them? And she's like, do you speak Spanish? I was like, nah, but like, I don't gotta speak Spanish. I got this. And I just like looked at them, and I looked at the paperwork, and I like, because my parents speak 3 languages. All my relatives, a lot of them don't speak English. And I was the kid who didn't speak Assyrian, Sudith, or I didn't speak Arabic. So I was always the kid who was sitting around with people. Like, I don't know what you're saying, but I know what you're saying. Because my parents never taught us the language. So this was my upbringing, right? So I sat there and I was like, look, and I explained it, and the family looked so fucking relieved. And I was like, I'm not special. I'm just a kid who didn't know a language growing up. I'm just a kid whose parents spoke a different language in front of her. I'm not, you know what, my in-laws, same thing. I don't speak Croatian, but when I'm with the in-laws and they're talking in Croatian with my partner, I just kind of figure it out and I go, okay, you guys are talking about this now. Okay, you're saying this, right? Like I'm getting it. I'm starting to pick it up. I'm starting to understand what's going on, right? And everyone's no, I don't speak any languages but English, guys. Language has never been my specialty. I do not get it. It's very confusing. I'm already fucking dyslexic as it is. Like, I'm so bad with language, but I'm really good at communicating with people who don't speak English. I feel like I'm a fucking pro communicating with people that don't speak English, but I feel like I'm really bad at language. So, yeah, I speak English barely is the joke, you know?
Terrible. I mean, if you look at the United States during 1948, there was an arms embargo during the time.
Yeah, and they sent in illicit weapons into Israel regardless. That's what I was talking about.
Yeah.
They got it from France and they got it from many other areas.
I love how we're getting a history fucking lesson here. Chad says, how do you communicate with them? I have a deep belief that all humans are the same. So I just assume they're communicating that in a way that feels obvious. So I know cultures are different. I know body language can mean different things. And I know tonality matters. So I just use the data to come to a conclusion where the probability makes sense. So if somebody's not speaking English, but they're throwing shit, I'm going to assume they're angry. If somebody doesn't speak my language, but they're crying, I'm going to assume they're sad. If like I go with the basics first and then I add the nuance for what they could be expressing that's culturally significant to them that doesn't convey or that doesn't translate, you know? And then I just kind of figure out what they're talking about. Now, it's not like I understand them the way I would understand an English speaker. It's that I understand the idea of what you're saying, so I understand what's happening. But it doesn't mean I understand like their deepest, greatest thoughts. It doesn't mean I understand word for word. It doesn't mean, you know what I mean? Like it doesn't mean, in the same way when I'm at a Croatian restaurant and I point to something on the menu and say, can I have this? They know what I'm saying. It's like I use body language. You point, you communicate. It's not like you need to understand every word. So maybe like if my partner didn't speak English the way they do, we wouldn't probably be compatible because I would always be worried we weren't really understanding one another. I'm like, one of my very big insecurities, which I'm sure as a neurodivergent you guys can relate, is like being misunderstood. And so if my partner didn't speak English in the way that he does, maybe I wouldn't feel comfortable with her and then we wouldn't get married and then we wouldn't be, because like the way they understand me makes me feel safe. And a big part of that is our shared language. And a big part of it is our shared understanding of nuance, right? So yeah, maybe I'd be like, maybe I wouldn't have married them if they weren't so fluent in English in the same way, because I would feel scared, right? But that doesn't mean I feel scared with people who don't speak English, because most of the communication we're having doesn't have to do with my deepest, darkest, thoughts. It has to do with whether or not, do you want pepperoni on your pizza? Yes or no? Yes. I feel like most of human communication is like, do you want this? Yes. Don't do this. Okay. I feel like it doesn't need, we could just do it silent, really. We could mime.
Areas.
Can you provide a source on that? Because that's
yeah.
not how I understand it went down.
Okay.
I understand that they got some help and weapons from like Czechoslovakia was selling them rifles and shit, selling it to them. You know what I mean? There wasn't a lot of countries that were willing to sell them anything, but Czechoslovakia.
But there was an arms embargo, which meant that they were acquiring illicit weapons. Yes, this is true. From many different countries. However, beyond that, they also had access to British arms as well. That's why they had like armored personnel carriers, tanks.
I mean, the Egyptian army was considered one of the best at the time of that war.
Well, not necessarily, it seems, but
why? Because they lost, but they were. I mean, they were considered one of the best armies in the world, which is why the war was so thought to be like, oh, this is going to be an easy dub for the Arab countries.
I do not think that they were a really good standing army at all. I think that the overarching, I don't know if you're talking about 1948 or if you're talking about 1967.
1948. I'm talking about 1948 war.
I think there's a little bit of confusion with what you're saying, because what you're describing sounds like 1967, because in 1948, like the Egyptian army that you're referencing in 1948 is not like a serious one.
No, I'm talking about 1948. I think Egypt was considered like a military power, especially in the region, and a fairly well-trained army. But I think we're kind of
what does this
to
matter?
Go back to the original point. So
what does any of this matter? They're not fucking historians. Like, what does this matter? Why are they having this conversation?
I don't want to drift too far off topic here. Is that Israel, if it has to, will definitely go its own way before dissolve its borders. I really want people to understand how impossible, how that will never, ever, ever happen. And again, not defending them. I'm not justifying anything. I'm just speaking pragmatically. You have a people who are coming from this systemic genocide, coming and getting their own borders here, right or wrong. Again, just being pragmatic. They have a massive, well-trained standing army of the whole country. They have nuclear bombs. They're fucking crazy, dude. They will, and they do believe that dissolving the borders would be a second genocide. They believe that, all of them, almost all of them, I'd say. And so you have to reckon with this.
How does this Ethan reckon with modern day Ethan and Sam Cedar when he said most Israelis don't want to genocide the Palestinians? But that's what you're saying. You're saying Israel will never give up power. Israel will never allow Palestinians to be seen as equal. So then wouldn't it make sense that most Israelis would then be pro the genocide? Because it's like you or us. That's what I'm trying to say. If it's a you or us thing, then they're going to be supportive of the genocide. Like, that's why Ethan is supportive of the genocide, because he's saying it's either Israel or nothing, because Israel's never going to give it up. So if you support Israel, then you support the genocide.
With this reality that with the one state, it's impossible.
I understand it, and that's why I said it's not going to happen overnight. It's not like, all right, everybody, like, it's a one state now. Like, that's not how this works, right? But a international commitment in the exact opposite direction has to happen, and it has not happened thus far.
Well, then a good question even then is like, do you ever even think that's possible before we can even get to the idea that we need to exert pressure on Israel from foreign forces?
I think that there's a reason why there is a steady flow of propaganda into the Western world that the Israel Foreign Ministry cares about a lot, because they want to maintain a posture that is broadly supported by the Western world. And I think that dam has been breaking since 2021, once like B'Tselem, Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch also all officially declared Israel to be an apartheid state. In my opinion, it was, decades late. But yes, over time, as the brutality of this regime continues to get worse and worse, more and more people will, in my opinion, keep continuously protesting Israel's actions and will push to get Western leadership to pull support away and ultimately even move in the direction of sanctions. This kind
of timeline are we thinking here?
I'm not entirely. I don't know. I don't know how long this will take, but I won't stop fighting for it.
It doesn't go on that long. It sounds like that's a really long plan.
I mean, the inverse of this is also a really long plan, and the really long plan revolves around Israel continuing to slowly but surely engage in pogroms in the West Bank, turn a blind eye to it, or directly arm the settlers like Itamar Ben-Gvir has been doing, and continue to push Palestinians in the West Bank further and further away, with the ultimate goal of maintaining an ethnic cleansing and ethnic displacement campaign in parts of Gaza, maybe even annex further and further, because everybody fully understands that there's no way to eradicate not just Hamas, but just a means of violent resistance against an apartheid, right? So if it's not Hamas, then it's Hamas too, right? Hamas in and of itself was not a real entity that was even remotely popular in its formation, moving away from a charity group, an Islamic charity group that literally was getting funding from Israel as well, to an actual militant group in 1988, to one that switched over to start using suicide bombs on civilian targets in the aftermath of 1994.
The one thing I learned about...
Ooh, chats. Okay, hold on. Let's make bets, because I'm curious. Just curious to see how the convo between them will go today. I'm 70% sure it won't happen, though. I am still not convinced it's happening either. But that's because I'm like, what are they going to even talk about? Right? But of course, it's going to be a big deal if either pulls out, because the internet's going to come for whoever pulls out. But I also wonder if it's going to happen or how it's going to happen. What are they even going to talk about? What is even the conversation going to be? That's why I'm a little confused. The conversation with Sam was so weirdly all over the place and confusing. But I am kind of curious, what do we think it happens? I think it's I think I'm 75% convinced it might happen. But I'm almost I think some part of me thinks it's not happening. But I'm pretty sure they can't back out either. I feel like the pressure is there. I feel like the pressure is now there. So if either of them back out now, they're going to get harassed. So they have to show up. It's almost better for them to show up. So that means I feel like it has to happen. Sociologic in the chat says it better happen. This is a canon event. Well, that's what I'm saying. I feel like it has to happen now. So that's why I think it is going to happen. But then something in the back of my head is I don't know. But then if they do back out, who backs out? Hassan would back out because he feels like it's not good for the Palestinians and it's stupid and I'm not going to do it. Or Ethan backs out because he's like, Hassan's not going to be good faith. Hassan's not going to be good faith. So that's why I'm thinking the reasons why they might make the excuse, right? I feel like that could be in their heads the justifier, right? Who knows?
Hamas. Because it's easy to look at Israel and look at all the obstructionists, the peace. I mean, Rabin, I think it was Rabin that was executed, right? By
Yes,
a fucking
Yitzhak
psychotic.
Rabin.
And they were so close. They were so close to peace. But Hamas actually rose to prominence in opposition to the PLO peace talks. That is why
That's a great.
they came out, is literally to derail the peace talks.
So
and they went out and
you're right. You're
They
absolutely right
went
about
out. Hold on. They went out and they started suicide bombing cafes and buses on a weekly basis, a daily basis, and they were successful, frankly. So Hamas, from their inception, has their singular goal is to not have peace, but to basically there's no compromise for them. It's only kill everybody there, remove them all. You know what I mean?
So let me explain this to you. This is actually, we are very close to having the exact same understanding of the situation. The reason why I brought up Hamas and its founding charter in 1988, which is like expel all the Jews, like kill all the Jews, or whatever the fuck they said, like the radical violent shit that they said in their founding charter, is because Hamas, out of all of the militant factions that some were violently resisting against the Israeli occupation.
Yeah, it's interesting. I just went onto their Reddit to see what was going on. Again, talking about the start of Israel and Israeli history with Ethan Klein just feels like a fucking waste of time. So chat says, hold on, where was it? Fuck. Prediction, Ethan is gonna use most of the time to attack Hassan for personal issues like CPS and Reddit harassment. Because what else are they gonna talk about? Like, this conversation right here is honestly like so boring to me, to watch somebody try to explain Israeli history to Ethan Klein, like as if any of that's gonna matter. We should be talking about the humanitarian perspective. Fuck Israel's beginning. Fuck the infrastructure. People are dying, Ethan. People are literally dying. And Israel is the only person who can stop this because they have the fucking backing of the United States and the power at hand. Like, people are fucking dying for no fucking reason. And IOF soldiers are expressing like every IOF soldier that like wore people's dresses, looked at people's underwear, played with people's pianos, made fun of people's bombed homes, like, they should be put on like confinement. They should be put on leave. Like, they shouldn't even be allowed to serve the next day. Like that, you know what I'm saying? Like, what are you doing? It's gross. It's literally gross. And you know, every military, like our military sucks too. Like the US military, so much rape, so much sexual harassment. Like, our military sucks too. And so there's something to be said about, you know what I mean? Something to be said. So yeah, chat says IOF soldiers are groomed to think this way. Well, that's the problem. They are. Same way that the military loves when they get a white boy who wants to kill Arabs. They want you to feel hostile. They want you to get ready. They want you to feel like, yeah, I'm going to die for this fucking war. For what? What are you dying for? This is why patriarchy hurts men. You convince young boys to sign up to go defend a country that doesn't give a fuck if they die, bro. Doesn't give a fuck if they die. The way we send in young people to die for old people is crazy, bro. Wasn't it in Japan that the there was a nuclear reactor or something, and the elderly went in instead of the young people because they knew young people had their whole life ahead of them? Wasn't that Japan? And I kept thinking, that's fucking based. That's fucking beautiful. You know what I mean? Like, that's fucking that's like futuristic thinking right there, baby. I think it was Japan. I don't know. But I just kept thinking like, oh, that's what I like to see. Somebody realizing like we as older people, we need to save young people. Young people can't be out here risking their lives for old men in Oval Offices. Okay?
Some of which were actually interested.
So anyways, I think Ethan and Hassan are basically just going to harp about, like Chatter said, like harassment or something. Which I guess at that point is probably what they should talk about. You know what? Oh my God, wait. Is this hopeful? This is hopeful thinking. Maybe the only conversation Ethan and Hassan should actually have is, what is a way we can both contribute to a better space on the internet, like making the internet a better space for these discussions. Like, not about Palestine and Israel and not about their personal relationship, but literally like, why do you think it always comes to this? And I think Hassan would actually have a good faith conversation about that. I don't think Ethan would. I think Ethan would say, well, it would help if your community wasn't harassing me, as if we're not all harassed. And that's not to justify it, because Ethan always talks about that. Like, you guys are saying this is just how the internet is. Yes, But why? It's not okay. I don't like it. You don't like it. But why is it like that? And I do think it's a heavy reflection of the content creator to some extent. But yeah, that's what I think would be a nice thing. Also, I can't be a moderator. You guys are so sweet. Do you know why? Because I can't keep my facial expressions neutral. I'd be like, I can't keep my facial. A moderator has to be neutral, and I'm just not a neutral girly. I'm like, I would literally be like, I can't. So, I can't be a moderator. You know what I'm saying? It'd be funny though. I know it was a joke, but it'd be funny.
In a peaceful solution like the one that you just mentioned with Yitzhak Rabin, the PLO, Yasser Arafat, the official recognition that that there was peace negotiations that would finally feature Palestinian voices at the table, changed a lot of Palestinians' minds on the issue. So Oslo in and of itself was already a non-starter agreement, in my opinion. A lot of Palestinians felt like that was fucked up. Like the conditions that were offered in Oslo were completely inconsiderate to the needs and demands that Palestinians were making. However, the two-state solution in that time frame, going from Oslo to Camp David, is directly responsible for Hamas gaining more prominence amongst the Palestinian population, never really being anywhere near close to the level of popularity that Yasser Arafat enjoyed in the first elections that happened, which was an 83% governing mandate, unimaginable popularity, which to me signals that the Palestinians were always on board with believing that Israel would offer them a favorable negotiation. And yet time and time...
And they got fucked over, bro. You know what I feel for Palestinians? Because they got fucked over. They, in good faith, thought their representatives were really going to vouch for them. And everybody literally strung them along and neglected them through this whole fucking process. And any hope the Palestinian people had for representation just didn't show up. Every time and time again. And I'm sick of it.
Again, every single Israeli government, every single negotiation.
It's like Mean Girl status. It feels like all the kids in high school are putting together their fucking school clubs. And the Palestinians are like, hey, we want a club too. And everyone's like, yeah, we'll get you a club. We'll get you a club. Just trust us. And the Palestinians are like, okay. And then y'all didn't get them a club. You're so fucking annoying. That's so frustrating to me.
Committee utilized the two-state solution, dangling it like a carrot, simultaneously offering very little to the Palestinians, having red lines that were considered non-starters for Israel, like Israel's own demographic concerns, while simultaneously expanding rapidly and partitioning off different parts of the West Bank, which was occupied territory. So from the eyes of the Palestinians, they saw this as yet another instance where, okay, well, we're trying to negotiate with Israel. Yasser Arafat is trying to negotiate with Israel, and yet they're not giving us anything. They keep pushing us.
I agree. Chad says they were so good faith. Listen, the little bit I know about the start of Israel and Palestine and everything, I think Palestinians were too good faith. I think they were too good for this world. I do. I think people took advantage of their good nature. I think people just neglected them, and I think the world doesn't deserve them. I do.
Blocking and pushing and using this as a means to continuously build settlements and continue pushing out Palestinians in the West Bank. And that's precisely what happened over this decade, multiple decades long process. So I do not fault Palestinians for looking at the situation and thinking, well, what the fuck are we supposed to do? Another turning point was obviously Israel pulling out of Lebanon. This was another pivotal moment where a lot of Palestinians were like, okay, well, Hezbollah violently resisted Israeli occupation, and that occupation became too costly for Israel.
True. Chat is saying that's what happened to the indigenous population of Canada. And this is what's so sad is these oppressors will come, tell your story for you, and make you out to be the bad guy. You didn't want to work. You didn't want to get along. You didn't want to build trade. You were horrible people. That's what they're doing to Palestinians right now. And it's happening right in front of us, and it's horrible. These communities are all out here in good faith, and then these oppressors come in absolutely not good faith, and that's what the bullshit of it all. That is 100% the bullshit of it all. That is so frustrating to me. That is so gross. It's just so gross, and I don't believe in a hell, but some of these people go to hell. Some of y'all go to hell for the way you took these people's good faith and twisted it and then made them out to be the bad guy in history. Shame. Shame, shame, shame.
Israel, so they had to pull out. Meanwhile, on the other hand, we are still occupied, and our leaders are trying to work with Israel. And the leaders that are trying to work with Israel have been given weapons, have been given training, and then they use those weapons and that training to maintain some semblance of civil governance. But that civil governance isn't actually real civil governance. It's simply being used against Palestinians. So that is the reason why Yasser Arafat's influence waned over the course of this multiple decades long process, where everyone saw him as an incredibly corrupt figure by the end of it, and were looking for any other option that would possibly offer them real emancipation, real results. The goal for both Hamas and any other violent movement has never been to wipe out every Jewish person around the world or whatever. And it's always to make this occupation as costly as possible. This does not mean that they're good guys. I would not say that. I do not agree with Hamas. I think that their actions were very brutal, especially on October 7th. But having said all of that, the goal always is for them to make this occupation as costly as possible so that Israel cannot maintain it.
Right. But again, without drawing conclusions about who's right and who's wrong. Broadly, I agree with the Palestinians. I think it's worth saying in terms of them being fucked over, obviously the hardest, and being the most entitled to peace and reparations and lands and stuff. But again, let's go back. So Hamas was created in opposition. You say the peace talks back then wasn't even realistic. So This is during the most magnanimous time in Israel's history, where everybody thought peace was possible. And even the beloved prime minister, who was considered a dove, this was the offer. And so, again, not good enough. However, looking at now, I'm just being real. Like, you have to see how impossible it is. It's just a non-starter. It's just a non-starter with Israel. It will just never, ever, ever happen. And another question I have to ask you, I guess, going along is like, do you think a lasting peace is possible while Hamas is in power? I
think that in order for Hamas to actually be dealt with appropriately and for it to no longer exist, the major goal of Hamas needs to be eviscerated, which is a secular democratic republic would completely destroy any kind of legitimate need for violent emancipation. It's over at that point. Without the apartheid, there's no reason for any of this to exist.
You're saying if they lift the blockade, Hamas will just dissolve.
Hamas in and of itself is already not a very popular.
Hamas will naturally dissolve, especially as new people. It's not a permanent establishment. It's a construct created out of the situation. Hamas will eventually, and maybe not in the smoothest way possible, but eventually new generations of kids will be born. Less kids will need it. This is why kids are the future. Kids are the future. You know what I'm saying? Because they do change things. Like what is needed during your father's reign doesn't necessarily mean it's needed during yours. So yeah, I do think that there is a future in which Hamas doesn't need to be there forever. It's just there temporarily. But how long is that temporarily? Who knows? What do I say? Life is just moments in time. And sometimes that moment lasts a lifetime. So who knows how long this moment will last, but it's not going to last forever. Maybe it lasts through your existence, but remember, the world doesn't revolve around us. We're not fighting today for us. We're fighting for tomorrow. That's just the reality. You know what I mean? I might not be able to buy a house, but maybe my nephews can buy a house one day and not feel so constrained. Remember that when my parents bought their first home at 40, they had 9 kids, 10 on the way. They bought a $280,000 home, and my dad was making $100,000. That same home is now being sold, if sold, $1 million. My dad, on the same salary he makes to this day, because my dad owns a business, he has not given himself a raise, he makes the same money, could not afford the home that I spent a pretty good amount of my childhood in. The second home they bought, the home they are in now forever, was a $500,000 home. They bought on a $100,000 salary. Now worth $1 million because, California. Pretty sure they could not get a loan for that home. That's the point. Maybe I won't be able to buy the house that my parents could afford, but maybe my nieces and nephews have a chance because of what we're about to do, what we're going to do for the future. We got to stop. If you're an adult in the room, it's not about you. It's about the kids. If you're a kid in the room, don't worry about it. We're taking care of it, hopefully, a little bit. Hopefully we're doing something. But yeah, that's really hard for me to process. And so even when my family gets stuck because they're so MAGA, they'll be like, why don't you guys own homes? Oh, girl, don't ask me that question under this administration, please. Don't ask me that question. Americans are stressed for our own reasons. We have a right to feel stressed. Palestinians are stressed for their own reason. People are stressed for a reason. That's why people need basic things met: food, water, shelter, clothing, education, healthcare, basics, absolute basics. I can't believe in America we're still arguing about like what's a basic. Yeah, chances if you're a kid, forget about it. Yeah, forget about it. Exactly.
Popular entity, both in Gaza, but I guess ironically a little bit more popular in the West Bank as years have passed by. The only group that is less popular than Hamas in the eyes of Palestinians, however, is the Palestinian Authority. To me, this is Israel's arrogance, the way that the Israeli governments under Netanyahu and under even more peaceful, supposedly more dovish leadership like even Ehud Barak, the Palestinian Authority has always been used as a part of the Israeli security apparatus. The Palestinian Authority collaborates with the Israeli government. They actually give up resistance members. They literally give up random Palestinians to the Israeli government so they can be unlawfully detained. This, of course, has created in the minds of Palestinians a anger towards like the one group that is supposed to be collaborating with Israel. Israel had every opportunity throughout this time frame to show that the secular Fatah party was actually not simply a cutout that is simply there to oppress Palestinians, but with a Palestinian face, but instead like offered genuine security assurances, genuine security commitments, and a good faith interest in like not continuously expanding in the West Bank. But they didn't do that. They did the exact opposite, dangling the two-state solution as a carrot.
Yeah, Chet says, I figured it out. Ethan comes off arrogant here with his "it's never going to happen" energy. Well, I think it's like a weird thing to say out loud to a group of people that feel cornered after they just did an attack on your people. And you're like, yeah, we're never going to dissolve. We're never going to work with you. You're never going to be a part of us. It's like, okay, so October 7th was justified. What are you saying? What are you saying? You're literally saying, like, we're never going to stop genociding you. It's like, okay, well, then October 7th makes sense. And the same way Ethan was saying, well, Hamas had to have known we would genocide them if they attacked. Well, it would have been obvious to you that, like, Palestinians would have in some way fought back because of what you did to them. Like, what are you saying? You're not even giving them any hope. You're not giving any, like, you're literally... Girl.
While simultaneously continuing on with their expansive policies in the West Bank.
I don't believe you answered the question. Do you think a lasting peace is possible while Hamas is in power?
Hamas will not be in power if there is lasting peace. That's my point.
Okay. So you're saying, well, no. The lasting peace doesn't come first. First, you have to deal with Hamas.
You cannot deal with Hamas by bombing Gaza. You can only deal with it in it's a political problem.
Exactly.
But how do you do politics with a terrorist group like Hamas?
Bro, I'm going to slap you. We do politics with the America all the time. How is this hard for you? You act like, what do you mean? The mafia does politics. Gangs do politics. What are you talking about? He doesn't know what politics is, bro. He doesn't know what politics is.
Well, Israel has done politics with Hamas many times over. There has been ceasefires in between, time and time again. So that's not even even if we're having this conversation, Israel itself has been able to.
First of all, agreeing to a humanitarian ceasefire.
No, not even.
By the way, that propaganda of we don't negotiate with terrorists. Yeah, that's bullshit. We negotiate with terrorists all the fucking time. That's just Hollywood, guys. Hollywood thinks we never negotiate with terrorists. That's a movie thing. That's not a real life thing. We negotiate with terrorists every day. Called the UN. I'm just kidding. Not the UN, but everybody involved in the UN. It's an America joke. I'm making fun of America. We negotiate with terrorists all the time. Okay? I negotiated with your mom last night, and she was very happy with the resolution we came to.
I'm not talking about like a humanitarian pause. I'm talking like ceasefires in between different sieges that have occurred into Gaza.
Okay. A ceasefire is different from having a peace partner.
A ceasefire is different than having a peace partner, but that is one form of negotiations, is what I mean. And
so
also, not only that,
it's such a big difference. I don't think it's fair to say that Hamas would be a good partner in peace with Israel. You think Hamas would be a good partner in peace with Israel?
No, I do not. I do not believe that Hamas would be a good peace partner with Israel. I also do not believe Israel is a good peace partner for Palestinians in general. I think that is the most important.
We agree.
So Hamas
My
in and of itself.
Just again to draw it back to that, is that the one-state solution will never happen, and starting from there is a non-starter. That's my thesis. But go ahead about Hamas.
Okay. Here is what is important to understand, and this is not just my assessment. This is the assessment of the likes of Norm Finkelstein as well, and it's backed by.
Chet said, did I misunderstand yesterday, or did Ethan literally say that October 7th happened because Hamas wanted Palestinians to be genocided? No, Ethan is saying the same thing that people are saying about Netanyahu. So there's multiple conspiracy theories. I don't know what's real. They said Netanyahu paid Hamas to do October 7th so they could justify the genocide of the Palestinians. Theory 1. Theory 2. Ethan's theory. Hamas had to have known that Israel would retaliate, so they committed October 7th regardless of knowing, because they don't care about Palestinian lives, this is Ethan's theory, that Israel would retaliate. So Hamas attacked at the expense of Palestinians. Okay. Third theory, Hamas is desperate, pushed into a corner, and trying to do anything possible to liberate Palestinians, even if it's killing people on October 7th. Because after 75 years of occupation and the clear genocide happening to Palestinians, there's nothing left to try. They're all going to die anyways. They might as well try everything they can. And fourth theory, because Hamas brought attention, we are now paying more attention to Palestine than we have in a very long time. The last time I talked about Palestine versus Israel on my channel was like 10 years ago, because it's been happening for this long. But I think some people think that Hamas now made it everyone's paying attention. And to be fair, everyone is paying attention. So I don't know which one of these theories is technically the most true, because I can't read men's minds. But either way, those are some of the theories that are being passed around, right?
Actual sentiment expressed by Likud party members, but of course Benjamin Netanyahu too. Hamas's and its existence as a violent Islamist fundamentalist cutout greatly benefits thwarting any kind of Palestinian nation-state project. This is not my design. This is the design of the Israeli government. This is something that Benjamin Netanyahu has openly mentioned.
Hold on. Chat says, Britt, hold on. Britt, how can you be so hopeful about Gen Z with all the misogyny rampant among them, especially young men? Because with peace and love, we might be living under a patriarchy, but if we can get women, femme people, gay men to stand up against the patriarchy, then the misogynists, they're going to have to deconstruct or die out single and alone with no children. Stop having sex with misogynists. You are doing preventative work, kids. Just like we have birth control to prevent pregnancy, do the due diligence during a first date during courting to see the kind of person you are going to be with. It's very easy to tell a misogynist. It's very easy to test them, okay? But you have to deconstruct your own misogyny to see it in others. You, as a woman, AFAB, gay person, have to counter your own internalized misogyny, okay? If you're a lesbian, you also have to do it, girl. Don't make me point out all the masked lesbians constantly being pick-me's around men, okay? Because you're all trying to be men, okay? Not literally, but you know what I'm saying. So we are who I have hope in. The people who are willing to deconstruct. I'm also not attached to the outcome. I fully accept it will be what it is. I can only do my role. You can only do your role. Okay? We can only ever do what we can do. My hope is consistent because I'm an optimist. And I think whatever will be. It might not happen in my lifetime, but in 500 years, it might look a lot better than it does now. Okay? It might not happen in my lifetime, but it's not about me, y'all. I need you to understand, I don't care about me. I'm just here. I'm just here. I am doing this for the hope that something will benefit people 200 years from now. It's not about me. I'm already dead. I've already died. My life's already happened. I grow old and I'm in love and it's good. I have a good life. My life's good. It's over though. I've already died. I am only focused on the future. When it comes to work, I'm focused on the future. My life is left. I've already lived in the present. I'm living in the present in my own life. I've already seen my death. Okay? In a philosophical sense, girl, I'm already dead. But the kids who aren't here yet, I hope to leave a little bit of a footmark, a footprint, whether I'm named or not, that benefit those kids. Okay? All right? Chat says, I want to be optimistic as well, but when I see a reality in the world, I just don't see the scope for the future. Start with yourself. You leave me lots of very interesting comments on my stream all the time. A lot of it, I could see a lot in your own comments that tells me you have a path to deconstruction. Deconstruct your own misogyny. Deconstruct your own thoughts. Stop watching these really shitty streamer boys and stop asking me to do collabs with them, huh? Weren't you the one who told me to talk to Andrew Wilson yesterday? Deconstruct that, girl. You have good intentions, I can tell. Deconstruct yourself, and then we can talk about the world. You know? That's the thing. We always want to look at the world instead of ourselves. I know you got it in you because you're sitting here in my stream all the time and I appreciate you. So I know you got it in you. Worry about yourself, and that's what other people should be doing. These misogynistic men, They're not. They're just pointing the blame. So don't blame them either. Do not blame the misogynist, and don't let the misogynist blame you. Point the finger inward. You know? That's the answer. And also let go of the attachment of the outcome. Will be, guys. Whether the planet is nuked, whether animals go extinct, it doesn't matter. I'm not trying to keep human beings alive. I'm trying to give people good lives. See, Andrew Wilson would say women ought to make babies to keep the population alive. And I'd say I have no obligation to keep people alive. I only have an obligation to doing less bad. My only hope for humanity is not that we make more babies. That's fine if you do. My hope is that those babies have a good life. I care about your quality of life. That's what I care about.
Time and time again as well. Last time around in 2019, where he said, if you want to thwart a Palestinian nation statehood, what you must do is only govern against Hamas, because everyone sees them as terrorists. Everyone sees them as violent Islamist fundamentalist terrorists, and we can always deal with Hamas because we control how high the flames go.
Who else is there to talk to?
First of all, there are actual leaders within the Palestinian movement that you could prop up, like the Palestinian Authority, instead of utilizing Fatah as
That's what that's what they want to do. But like, I mean,
no, they don't want to do that either.
they want to. I think the goal is to remove Hamas and install the Palestinian Authority. But
Yes, but Palestinian Authority is deeply unpopular and is seen as a puppet of the
the
Israeli
Dodgers
government.
will not accept the PLO because they'll look like stooges to the Israeli government. So if the wall is lifted up,
Ooh, Discord brought up a good point. Says people believe that the coral reefs were doomed, but turns out they only are if we continue to believe that as a collective. Some think hope and optimism is naive, but it's the key part of change. Hank Green talked about this. Sometimes I think one of the dilemmas, and this is not anyone's fault, but this is how humans do it. Sometimes I think we use negativity to motivate people to be good, but I actually think optimism is better. If you tell people there's no hope, they're not going to be better. But if you tell people, look how beautiful our coral reefs are, let's keep it this way, let's keep them alive, I think people are more motivated. Look at Ethan telling us there's no hope for Palestinians. Okay, well, you want to know what people are like when they have no hope? Shit's about to get ugly. Human beings with no hope, shit's about to get ugly. All of my life, the Jews were such a good example of hope during the Holocaust. The optimism and the belief they had that they would be rescued was a level of hope I always thought was so heroic in people, so brave. For people to be genocided and to remain hopeful, like the Palestinians are right now. So remember that your optimism is an investment. Why invest in a future you have no hope for? Optimism keeps people moving for a better future. Stay optimistic. Stay optimistic, people.
so who's in charge? Is it Hamas? Is it the PLO? How is this happening?
At this stage, before the walls are lifted,
Chad says, Brittany, what I would like to see is more progressives step into the debate bubbles to fight these ideas so they can get through to young people on our side. That was the reason I asked your thoughts. Habibis, listen to me. Habibi, please listen to me. You can't debate people who are not good faith. All that does is amplify their base. That's how they make money off of you. Yes, it sucks. But the only reason these people want to debate progressives is to literally make money and to get more popular. That's how Andrew Tate does it. That's how all of them do it. The debates make these people more popular, right? So then what happens is now I've wasted time, resources that I could have gone to actually helping communities. Every minute we waste debating Andrew Tate online and Andrew Wilson and all of these people, we have wasted that time volunteering, cleaning up streets, feeding the homeless, helping our communities. Every time I spend not doing this, I'm not doing something for my own family, for my own self. Every hour I spend debating people bad faith, I don't spend working on my own exercises, eating good food, masturbating. I could be doing anything else with my time. Now, if good people with good intentions would like to get on stream and have good faith conversations about ways to help people, that shit would be great. Let's fucking do that. But we're not doing that, are we? Because the audience isn't ready for it. The audience doesn't want it. They think it's boring. It's not interesting. No one's fighting. No one's yelling. Why is Ethan v. Hassan going to bring in so many views? For just the chance that it gets ugly. For just the chance that it's interesting. Just the chance somebody loses their shit on stream. Because everybody knows Ethan's not coming in with good faith. And they're not going to actually have a discussion. That's it. Human's going to human. .
lifted up or anything. What needs to happen is a ceasefire so that there can be an actual continued negotiation to release the hostages, right? That's number one, first and foremost. So first you need to do a ceasefire. Then you need to do a prisoner swap, a hostage release for the
I think you're starting too far back. Let's just go to the point where, you know what I mean?
And then beyond that, what needs to happen is, just like it happened in 2006, was
And by the way, I want to say that chat says losing hope is a privilege. Palestinians don't have that privilege. We have the responsibility to be optimistic. I think that's true for the West, but I just want to say if you're a Palestinian who's lost hope, that's okay. You're not a bad person. Because I don't want Palestinians to internalize a message that they're not allowed to lose hope. Because who is in a greater position to lose hope than a person who's being genocided? They have the right to lose hope out of all people. So I agree with you. People who are privileged, hey, you better not lose hope. You're not the one being genocided. But I'll tell you this. You know what just broke my heart this week? And I can't show it to you on stream. Oh my God, Brittany. You know that baby boy, the 7-year-old boy who's on the rooftop and they had bombed his whole family and everybody was dead around him? Well, if your news doesn't blur it out, you can see his father in the background dead on the floor. It was horrible what happened on October 7th. Nobody should go through that. Nobody. And nobody should be going through what Palestinians are going through. What's happening in Sudan? What's happening in all these places? This is not good. This is not good. And now I can see it in my head. And I really do think if you talk about these subjects for a living, you should have to watch the videos. The minimum requirement for opening your mouth about these issues is you should be watching the videos. Both October 7th footage and the genocide that's happening to the Palestinians. Because how dare you get to come to stream, fucking privileged as fuck, talking about people's lives when you don't have to see their bodies blown to pieces. Okay, so I do think a part of me believes you should have to see these videos. You should have to see these dead bodies. You should have to see these people crying over these corpses. These bodies that have been left to rot because they can't collect their dead because Israeli soldiers will shoot them if they try to collect their dead. Yeah, I think you should have to see their bodies. I think you should have to see what you were so casually debating on fucking YouTube. Yeah, I think you should have to see it.
Genuinely disastrous, even though it was a Bush-backed election. Elections need to take place and Palestinians need to get security assurances from the state of Israel. Israel has to show good faith for the first time since its inception so that Palestinians can have a normal political process and be able to actually vote for a group of individuals that would lead them in civil governance without becoming a militant faction. In this process, I do not believe that it would be Hamas that wins out. Most Palestinians do not consider Hamas to be good at civil governance in general. They are not as popular as Israel makes it seem they are. They're simply the only option the Palestinians seemingly have in retaliating violently against Israel in times when Israel violates the ceasefire protocols by doing a steady maintenance of the apartheid structure that it maintains. Anytime Sheikh Jarrah is raided, anytime Al-Aqsa is raided every year, anytime there's a Flag Day protest that occurs in Jerusalem, like these are all incredibly violent expressions of the apartheid regime deliberately turning around and stoking the fires in the West Bank against people that have no legal recourse, against people that are led under military mandate.
I agree with everything you're saying, but to go back to go back to the original point, don't you think it's more likely? Like, I think this is infinitely more likely, even though it's very difficult, especially now. But to remove all the settlements, just fuck all of them off, those scumbag freaks. Give it back to the Palestinians, and you can do the security assurances and the negotiations and all of that while Palestine has its own sovereign country. And like I think in the original idea there was even going to be
that's more violent than a one state. Like, you think Israel would be able to successfully take out 471,000 settlers living in the West Bank and also another 300,000? Almost 300,000 more plus living in East Jerusalem as well, which is occupied, but now also permanently under Israeli rule.
You think that fully integrating the populations would be less violent?
Yes, I do.
Dude, there's no way. Like, all it takes is one thing. We've seen this time and time again in the history of this region. Like, it just takes one thing of like a bunch of psychotic Jewish fundamentalists going and doing horrible fucking acts, and then the Palestinians respond by doing horrific acts, and then you got to all out. It takes so little to create all out war.
I agree.
So little, dude.
I agree, which is why there needs to be an international presence and a steady pressure to ensure that that there is political pressure applied on specifically the Israeli side to ensure that there's a lasting peace process. This has happened time and time again. It happened in the dissolution of the apartheid state. It happened with the Good Friday Agreement that ended the troubles. And it always will happen, because I believe that no matter how much we fight, I think peaceful solutions are our natural state. We want to fucking coexist with one another. And the example I always use is when you look at Europe, right, which is a borderless utopia now, like the EU, the European Union, there's freedom of movement. Those guys have fought one another since the cousin fucker days for far longer than they've actually peacefully coexisted with one another. And now it seems impossible to think of a time when these guys would, kill one another for 100 years. I mean, World War II happened not that long ago. The Holocaust happened not that long ago. And now when you think about it, Germany can peacefully coexist with all of the other surrounding countries. So
is that the timeline we're on, like 100 years or something?
It would take multiple decades, but it's not like, I mean, it happened almost instantaneously after World War II. When you look at like civil governance in Germany, it was almost instant.
You mean after a horrific world war where like tens of millions of people died and countries were forever changed and traumatized, then they were able to create a lasting peace?
Yes. And that does not happen. That does not need to happen.
Okay.
No, I'm saying even in a situation like that, you can find
parallel
peace.
To the Middle East?
Even in a situation like that where millions.
Chat says, Brittany, just so you know, I wasn't trying to get you to talk to Andrew Wilson, but to find some middle or some shit. I was trying to make a bigger point about progressives fighting back against right-wing ideology. I hear you. I do. But we've tried to do this. We can't do it. It's the ethical question a lot of us go to bed thinking about. Look, the best thing I could have done in many ways is to keep engaging in the debate bubble, to show up, to argue my points, but nothing is actually getting done. I'm trying to explain to you, nothing is getting done. Real change doesn't happen in debates on YouTube. Like, you might think it does, but it doesn't. A majority of the world is too misogynistic to make the right people famous right now. There's a reason why Andrew Tate rises to power or Trump rises to power. The people have spoken, right? So pushing left-wing ideology isn't going to help if not enough of the population is on board, right? They're not going to help unless you package yourself in a way that's brandable. Remember, these people are brands. Charlie Kirk, Ben Shapiro, Andrew Tate, they're all brands and they're all networking together. The left, we don't network together in the same capacity because we're not out here trying to get rich with Russian money. We're not trying to make we are literally willing to argue with each other because we're trying to do what's right. The reason they say the left will eat itself is because conservatives will stand by rapists. And the left is trying not to do that. We are saying, I would rather burn this bridge than stand by a predator. And the left isn't doing that. Why do you think Myron Gaines came out so hard to protect Destiny? And why do you think every person in the leftist sphere who's truly a progressive has cut ties with him? Even ones who are more liberal or centrist are like, bro, come on. Like, it was one thing to be a serial cheater, which was bad enough. It was one thing to be a verbal abuser, which was bad enough. It was bad. But now to be a predator on top of that, like, you're fucked. And the fact that people are still platforming Destiny tells me they don't know it about him. They haven't done their research. Jubilee hosting Destiny and then hosting any conservative, they don't care. They want your money, 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 girl. So yeah, the left might look like it's eating itself, but we are literally trying to do what's right more than get paid. Obviously, that shows most of us make literally less money than conservatives. You said, but Destiny was massively successful in fighting the red pill. I've seen so many people have their minds changed. He's not changing people's minds away from misogyny. He's just changing the misogyny's color to blue misogyny. He's making them liberal misogynists instead of red pill misogynists. What good did that do? It's not better. It just feels better. It's not better. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. I don't care. And like Destiny, as he's gotten older, has made it even worse for people. You can watch him and feel good that he's pwning some Trump voter. What does that matter at the end of the day? What kind of change is that really making? You know what I mean? Like, I don't care. Chat says perhaps reducing their misogyny, kind of diluting it. Yeah, chat says, I think you could use him as a stepping stone. Sure, as a stepping stone. But like, I'm not interested in being anyone's stepping stone. That's, you know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of us aren't interested. We've already done that work. And like, a lot of us are just, I'm trying to be your philosophy stepping stone, not your political one. You know? Sar, well, thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate. No, Jay's your name. Sar's the money. Sorry, Jay. Thank you for the super chat. Says, I'm way behind watching the stream, but just want to say that the Saudi population unequivocally supports Palestine. A lot of people, including myself, even boycotted all American products in restaurants. I love that. I keep hearing from people who are claiming to be Saudi Arabia, like say like I'm in Saudi Arabia, like we don't support Palestine or Hamas or whatever. We're like, we want peace. Da, da, da. I don't know how true this is. I don't know. I'm just hearing from the internet, bros. I never know anything. I'm just trying. Look, I'm at this point. I'm so exhausted listening to these people talk and think they're doing anything interesting for Palestinians. Look, none of us are doing anything for Palestinians except raising awareness, which is good. That's great. But at the end of the day, these debates and stuff might move people one direction or another, but they're not really about helping humanity. They're about making people feel good that they chose a winner. All you're doing is getting on Team Destiny because he pwned some fucking right-winger you thought was stupid. There's a guy I watch sometimes. Do you guys ever watch him? He has the George icon from Seinfeld, and I don't watch him because I like his content. I find him weirdly interesting. As a brand, he makes fun of women through a misogynistic lens, and he makes fun of red pillars. He's in the Destiny sphere, I think. Yeah, too lazy to try. That's what Destiny is. He's a guy who makes fun of women and blames women for all his problems. Every predatory thing Destiny has done, he's blamed a cluster B woman on. That's misogyny. And then he gets the pat on the back for debating red pillars against their misogyny. Do you understand why I'm saying this doesn't matter? This isn't a good person. It's just a misogynist thinking he's a better misogynist. Because I don't care. I don't care. I don't care that you're a slave owner who was nice to your slaves and therefore you're not as bad as the slave owners who were mean to their slaves. I don't care. I don't fucking care. It's not good enough and I don't give a fuck. You know who it's good enough for? Your mother. And I fucked her last night and honestly, not even worth it, okay? I don't care. I'm tired. In the year of our Lord FKA Twigs, I do not fucking care. Okay? So, no, the left does not need to debate these fucking losers on fucking stream. These losers need to go to fucking therapy and leave us all the fuck alone. Okay? I don't care. With peace and love, bro. With peace and love. Jesus, I'm so over this video, bro.
Died, right? Millions, tens of millions died. You can still find lasting peace almost overnight. And that's precisely what I'm saying is that it's perfectly reasonable to assume, as long as there is international pressure and that there is accountability and control and a committee designed specifically to dish out punishments for war criminals on both sides, according to the International Criminal Court, when there's a Truth and Reconciliation Committee in a similar capacity to the aftermath of World War II, and there's reparations afforded and a right to return to Palestinians, there will be no need for violence. This has happened in the past, and it can happen again. It seems unlikely because we're very conditioned to thinking like, oh, what is going on right in front of my eyes is exactly how things have been in my lifetime, and it can never change. Except it absolutely has changed, and it absolutely can change, and it will change. And that's why I use other historic examples like I mentioned, Ireland or the ANC and apartheid South Africa. These happened in our lifetime.
If you look at peace in Europe, I think this was possible from rising from the ashes of a ruined continent where unspeakable horrors that people didn't even think were possible occurred, capped off with a nuclear bomb. And by the way, Europe, the characterization of Europe as a utopia is interesting. But I want to say this. You saying sanctions against America or sanctions against Israel, you think would influence Israel to drop their borders. How have sanctions against...
No. You're good, bro. You said, I'm sorry, Brittany, I didn't mean to overwhelm you. You're not overwhelming me. I am exhausted because of Ethan Klein. It's not you. It's Ethan. It's everyone in this. It's this whole rhetoric. It's this whole thing. It's like I feel like I'm banging my head against a wall. And it's just like I'm physically exhausted and I'm just watching it. I'm not even Hassan. I'm not even in there, bro. I'm just watching. He's exhausting me. And then your comment kind of, it's not you. I don't know you. It's this mentality though, like if I just talk to Ethan, he'll get me. He's never going to get you. He's never going to understand you. He has to be the one to change. It's BoJack Horseman all over again. If you're a YouTube member, I'm reviewing BoJack Horseman, right? BoJack is self-aware, but not introspective. It doesn't matter how much you help him. It doesn't matter how many cupcakes you offer him. He's not going to learn. He has to make the decision to learn. These debate people who come into debates, they're not looking to change their mind. They're coming in to make sure people know they're right. And so they use bad rhetoric. They start yelling. They overwhelm you. They're not having real discussions. Look, I would love an authentic discussion from a right-winger, from a conservative, but also like if they've already made a decision about reality, they're not curious and open-minded, there's no reason. Now you might say, well, somebody in their audience, sure, but do you understand that as a woman on the internet, when I debate these men, I get harassed for weeks? Do you understand I get emails telling people to put a gun to my face? Do you understand that when I enter these spaces, it ends up being me who has to deal with all the harassment because I don't have a big audience. I don't have the things that can protect me. I don't make enough money. Okay? Like you're asking women especially to put themselves in a position to push, all it's going to do is give me harassment for 2 weeks. And then what? You know, it's like, it's not your fault. You're not thinking about it from that perspective. Right? But that's the reality of what I'm thinking about walking into is a conversation with somebody who's going to shame me for being a sex worker, who's going to shame me for being queer, who's going to be like, oh, are you autistic and on the internet? Somebody who's going to be like, oh my gosh, aren't you just like a white girl on the internet? And like, I'm just going to get there and be like, aren't you close to, don't you have borderline? And then all of a sudden I deal with it for weeks on end and I don't even get a paycheck. I don't even get a paycheck, girl. I'm not even getting the pay. They're making money off of me. So yeah, minorities, once again, being put in a position where they get to make money off of us and they make a lot of money. You understand that Myron and Fresh and Fit, all these people are making so much fucking money. And I walk away with maybe $20 of AdSense. I don't even have the money to pay for the therapy of what I just went through. Well, they walk away with probably $1,000 in a night. Easy. You know? It's not worth it. Chet says it wasn't about you, Brittany. I was talking about progressives in general. It's not worth it for progressives. I am talking about other progressives. It's not worth it for them. It's not worth it for them. I'm telling you right now, they're not doing it for a reason. You know how many black women I've talked to? It's not worth it for them to put themselves in this position. It's not worth it for us. It is better for us to put a safe space in place. And when those people are ready, they can find us. It is not worth it for us to go into their zone, to go into their space. I'll tell you a story. Marissa J. Johnson, black activist, really lovely lady, gave me really great wisdom and advice at one point in my life. She's the woman who infamously grabbed Bernie Sanders' microphone with her friend, right? We were at a work event together for a debate thing. And she asked that some form of woman of color be there, some leftist be there so she doesn't feel alone. So they asked me to show up because I was friends with the creators and that was fine. I wasn't the most, I get it, but I was there and she accepted it and I was there and I was a moderator. I did a horrible job, but I was there. And it all went great in general, but Marissa was definitely picked on. She was singled out. And Tim Pool was there and everyone was there and everyone who was famous at the time was there. And there was a content creator named Matt Mundane. And I knew Matt a little bit. We had known each other through work. And if you guys remember Matt Mundane, he got basically canceled off the internet because he was community striking people unethically while making content about how SJWs and women were pieces of shit. So I'm sitting on a couch with Marissa and we're chilling. We're relaxing. Okay. Tim Pool's coming through. A bunch of people are coming through. We're obviously the minority there. Okay, fine. We're at this event. And Matt Mundane sits down and goes, oh, hey, Britt. And I was like, hey, Matt, what's up? And it was weird because, it's Matt. And she looks at Matt and goes, I know you. I know your face. And he looks at her and he goes, oh, and Matt's a white guy for context who makes content talking about how woke people, he was the quartering if he hadn't fucked up with the strikes. Okay. He would have been, he's very similar. And Jeremy was there. Was that the same event with quartering? Wait, this might've been a different event. I've also met Jeremy. It doesn't matter. They're all pieces of shit. So, okay, Marissa and I are sitting there and she goes, Matt, I know your face. I know you. And he goes, you do? And she goes, aren't you the one who did a harassment campaign against me and told people I was scamming them? She had she had these boxes she was selling to raise money. And she goes, aren't you the one who sent harassment campaigns after me. And he goes, oh, and you could see on his face that it was him. And I was like, Matt. And I don't know Matt like that. I just know him through work. And I was like, bro. And Marissa's like, you are him. And he looked so embarrassed. These men are making a living going after well-intentioned women, people of color, who are not scamming their audience, but they are making so much money off of this. Okay, second story. Marissa and I are sitting on the couch, minding our business, talking, enjoying our life. One of the women there, Asian, married to a white man, already a red flag. Her husband comes up with a dog. And Marissa goes, oh my God, I love your dog. I also have a dog that's similar. And they were chatting and it was a very good conversation. And Marissa and him are talking and they mention, Marissa's like very, from a Black community, Black music, Black culture, Black background. So Marissa, I was the translator, and he goes, oh yeah, we live in Seattle. We both live in Seattle. Shout out to Nirvana. And Marissa looked at me. I think it was Nirvana, if I'm not mistaken. It might have been another white band, but I think it was Nirvana. And Marissa looks at me and goes, Brittany, who's Nirvana? And I'm like, and I'm explaining Nirvana, and he goes, you don't know who Nirvana is? And she goes, no, I'm Black. I grew up in Black churches. I grew up with, even though I'm biracial, I think she has a white mom. She goes, yeah, I don't know who that is. And I was like, oh yeah, like they're a grunge band, blah, blah, blah. And he starts getting weirdly combative with her. Like, and we're the oddball out. Okay, we went to debate. We went to show up. We went as the leftists into this space that was centrist and quote liberal. Okay, we went to this space. And this guy starts getting kind of like, that's so weird that you don't know who Nirvana is. And she was like, yeah, I just don't know who it is. And he goes, okay, I don't know why you're getting so aggressive. And she was like, excuse me? And I was like, excuse me? And he started to get like really defensive. Like, I don't understand why you're getting aggressive with me. And I was like, aggressive? She is literally vibing, bro. She is that. I cannot believe I actually lived long enough to see the aggressive black, or the white guy called a Black woman aggressive. I was like, are you so fucking for real right now? And I just sat there in real time. And so every time somebody asks progressive women specifically, or progressive people to put themselves in these positions, know that we do. And it always ends up with everyone blaming us for it. You're the oddball. You cause issues. The left always causes issues. You guys always complain. It was like, you have got to be kidding me. It's always bullshit. I'm telling you right now. So that's why I feel so passionately about this idea that progressives need to be in these spaces. We tried. It is hostile. And they make it hostile because their audience is hostile. And they want it to be hostile because that's what their audience wants to see. They want to see the fucking Coliseum. They want to see us ripped apart by lions. They want to see fucking bloodshed. Okay? And no, it makes no sense for us to go there. It makes no sense. There are ways to do it without it being a debate, right? I think Chris is doing a really good job making content about content creators. I think I do a pretty good job. We make content, but we don't need to be debating these people. Jay, thank you so much for the super chat. Says most of those are Israeli trolls who know how to speak Arabic poorly. I must say, they even created Palestine accounts that shit on us. Oh, I don't know what that's referring to. I think I've lost the context for that. Let me know in the chat. You don't have to super chat again, but let me know what the context for that was. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. So what I'm trying to say is, the right and the conservatives and the liberals play dirty in a way that progressives, like, we try not to. And that's why they think we're running away or that we're pussies. I'm really trying not to have to play dirty to stay in the race here. So I think that's why I chose philosophy, because I think philosophy allows me not to play dirty, but make my point. That's why I chose it. But nobody wants to debate philosophy outside of the white boy college bubble, and I don't want to debate them either. Do you think Socrates was more good than Plato? It's like, bro, with peace and love, that's not how I want to talk about philosophy. Love me Socrates and Plato, but I don't want to talk about it that way. But that's how they do it. They want to debate you. They don't want to actually like discover. I want to discover truth. You know? Anyways. Right.
Russia been going?
Thank you for saying that. Russia is a foreign adversary that has always positioned itself with the full knowledge that support from America, or a trade relationship with America is always on an uneven footing. So Russia, as an economic power, has never had to rely on America being able to meddle in their affairs in any meaningful capacity. Sanctions against our enemies, our foreign adversaries, oftentimes do not work. As a matter of fact, it's a means to galvanize the existing regime and its brutality. It doesn't work against Iran. It doesn't work
Israel
against
can
Russia.
forge the same alliances.
No,
You
it
think
can't.
China and Russia and North Korea and whoever the fuck else gives a fuck? You know what I mean?
No, it can't. I don't
It
I don't
can.
think so.
It can and it would.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Especially because
then I
like
just-
the quality, look at the quality of life in like a North Korea, for example. If you're permanently isolated from the rest of the Western world, right? It's not something that Israelis that are used to like a relatively comfortable existence, especially like one that with such close association to the Western world, would ever be on board with.
Dude, Israel is extremely resourceful. They've proven that from their inception. There's no way they will ever drop the border of their sovereignty. It will never ever happen. I understand everything you're saying, and I think what you're saying is interesting about like potentially over a long span of time strengthening diplomatic ties with the neighboring countries and stuff. I guess it's possible, in like 50 or 60 years that the landscape could be so vastly different than it is now that maybe if I were to be there and see it then, I could be like, okay, maybe this can work. But as of right now, looking at the situation, I can tell you, as someone who's lived in Israel, as someone who knows tons of Israelis, it will never happen. The Jews, they said they came out of Europe and they said never again. I know a lot of people find it ironic because of what they're doing to Palestinians. I'm not defending them, but they believe that. They went to Israel and they said never again. And they fucking made nuclear bombs and they made a big ass army and they fucking believe that shit. Trust me on that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do trust you. I hear it. I see it. I know. You cannot maintain a apartheid regime without like a steady flow of constantly reinforcing that through propaganda. A steady flow of propaganda is a necessity. That's precisely the reason why a lot of these positions are learned and reaffirmed time and time again. And I completely understand that. You can never maintain.
Wait, Chad, are you asking me whose side I'm on, like Ethan or Hassan or Palestine? Because I'm only on Palestine side. I'm not on Ethan's side or Hassan's side. I'm on Palestine side. That's whose side I'm on.
An apartheid state forever. It just doesn't
Again,
happen.
I want to emphasize I'm not moralizing anything I'm talking about. I'm just from pragmatics. In 1981, America was giving Israel almost 10% of its economy. Okay. In 2020, the current aid they're getting is about $4 billion. Is that right?
It's more than that, but I mean, just the
Let's just say-
the military aid alone is $4 billion. Yes.
Okay. That's 1% of their economy.
Yeah. That's 1% of the economy is massive, especially when you're thinking
Not
about
enough for them to fucking remove their borders. Not even close.
no 1% of the economy is huge, Ethan.
So 1%
Think about it this
is
way.
enough.
Think about it this way. The UAW strike was the UAW strike on the big three was slated to eat away at I think like what 5% of all of the states. Like that would have been devastating. It would cause economic collapse. And sanctions don't mean just like the direct aid. Sanctions don't necessarily just mean like all the weapons that we're giving to Israel. It also means like stopping companies from working with Israel as well. Like this is how sanctions
I
operate.
feel like, in a sense, Israel's become, they really, with the amount of tech and like inventions and IP shit they have, I feel like it would be really hard for a lot of companies to sever those ties. And Pegasus is just one good example of it.
I understand what you're saying, but it absolutely can happen.
But
It's
1%
just
is enough to convince Israel, who is afraid that they'll be
no
genocide.
1% is just the weapons, the amount of weapons that we're giving. Because
I love how Israel is afraid of it being genocided and Palestinians are just experiencing it. I will never get over it. I'll never get over Ethan's rhetoric around this. We know you're afraid, but it's not happening to you. It's literally happening to somebody else because of you.
it would be significantly more damaging to their GDP. Here, this is a good take.
Yeah,
Polygon
go ahead.
Primitive says the 2008 collapse was a 4% GDP contraction. So like that was that led to the 2008 collapse. 1% is simply just the weapons that we're giving, like the Iron Dome and things of that nature, like the Tamir interceptor missiles and stuff. So beyond that, it would be far worse than that. But also, before we even talk about like Israel's economy with American contributions, according to the Financial Times, Israel's economy is slated to collapse already. I think Standard & Poor's warned Israel even before the bombing campaign started that if they were to try to maintain a steady occupation of Gaza, that their credit rating would change dramatically because 300,000 reservists and all of these Merkava tanks and all of the rockets that Israel is utilizing, no matter how much America gives them support, is obviously going to have a long-lasting and damaging impact on the Israeli economy. Israel's economy at this moment is already in a troublesome situation, even without boycotts and even without sanctions. I don't think that the situation is as
Again, you have to acknowledge that to Israelis, the dissolution of its border is literally the genocide of them. They will all die. That's how they feel. So whatever percentage you think matters, if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
It just like I feel like there is a way. There is a well, people are gonna die because men are in charge and people die when men are in charge. Period. 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 Thank you. So people are gonna die. Okay. If y'all had done something different, we could have mitigated the harm. There are ways to calm people down before you start moving into this next part of life. There are things you can do from a humanitarian perspective that will make people less angry with you. Okay? You can actually make peace by being peaceful. The dilemma is that you're acting like you can just be like, hey, bro, sorry we genocided your family. Let's just like start from like, let's start over. It's like, yeah, it might take a while for people to feel comfortable just starting over, bro. And you're never going to start over. You got to be respectful. You have to fund funerals, give people back homes, give people infrastructure, years lost, therapy. There are little kids going literally bald because of the stress of being in a position that they're in. Like, this is something that now you will have to, like, we have these conversations in the States. Like, why are Native Americans, this is a conservative talking, why are Native Americans and Black communities still struggling in the economy? Why haven't they figured out? Because you literally built a system through genocide that is literally going to impact generations that aren't even born yet. And the fact that you don't know that is common, but very frustrating. Because, and this is the proof that we aren't just our appearance. I am not just Brittany because of who my parents were. I am Brittany because of who my grandparents were and my great-grandparents and my grandparents before that and every single person who came before me. I am not just a person who was born of two people. I am born of many, many, many people. Like, we are not just who we are today because of what happened 100 years ago. I am who I am today because of something that happened 300, 400, 500 years ago in my family lineage. Like, you didn't just fall out of a fucking coconut tree. You really do exist in the context of all that came before you. So, like, we need to remember that whatever happens, hopefully with Palestine being liberated, this is something that will impact their families for the next 4, 5, 6 generations. And that's what people aren't understanding, is everything you do now will impact people for generations. It's not just going to impact people for 20 years or 50 years or 100 years. And this is why I say, like, don't do anything out of fear. Don't do anything out of anger. Do things out of wisdom. But wisdom has to be earned. Look, I don't think I'm a very wise person. I think I might even die unwise. But my hope is that I get to earn wisdom in this lifetime. Sure, have I done wise things from time to time? Yes. But when I say do things out of wisdom, I mean to such a degree that 99% of the things we're doing are wise, which is impossible because we're all on a journey of unwiseness. So, I have done things that have been wise, but I don't consider myself a very wise person. I still think I'm earning my wings, if you will. And I think these people are so unwise and just think they're so right. They're loud and they're wrong. There's no consideration for everything that's going to happen. Only fear. Israel's doing it out of fear. They're afraid they're going to be genocided. Stop doing things out of fear. Stop doing things out of anger.
I cannot emphasize how fucking little it will matter to Israel ultimately if the question is dissolve your borders. It will never happen, ever. They think if they do that, they will all die. That's the perception in Israel. That's what they think. And you cannot convince them otherwise. You can't. Do you think that you can understand without being there and without living there, like that you can convince them otherwise? I don't understand I don't understand where that confidence comes from. How do you can make
the confidence comes from my belief that the morally just thing, like, I will always unflinchingly support the morally just cause, right? No matter what happens. If we talk about the practical application, yes, there's going to be people that are resistant to that. Maybe even people.
100%. You must do what is right and accept that there will be consequences. There are always consequences to whether you do things that are wrong or right. You can't avoid doing what's right because of consequences. It certainly doesn't help to do something wrong. But yes, there will always be consequences when you do the right thing.
who want to engage in acts of terror against that on the Israeli side, especially. But ultimately, these are solvable problems because I look at the material realities on the ground. Without American support, Israel, without Western support, unconditional support, and trade, Israel would not be able to maintain an apartheid regime, just like South Africa was not able to maintain its apartheid regime. And as long as there is more pressure from the West, this will most likely change if America finally does the righteous thing for once in its fucking life.
By the way, and I just need to make this clear because you keep saying that you support the moralistic thing. I support the moralistic thing too. I'm talking pragmatics here.
Men do this in conversation and they go, women can't be a part of the conversation because you guys are all about doing what's right. We're trying to be practical. So practically, we should genocide the Palestinians because that's just what's practical. Oh, but I also want to do the moral thing. No, practicality is not always moral. That's why it's hard. That's why doing the right thing is fucking hard. Because it's not always easy. It's not always what feels practical. You have to do the right thing even when it's hard, Ethan. Even when it isn't practical. Now, there are practical ways, like Hassan is saying, to evoke the right thing. But there is a consequence to even doing the right thing. Okay?
I'm telling you
Yes.
that the one state is a non-starter. That's my point.
The
I need to keep
pragmatism
emphasizing that.
does
I don't
not
have
rely.
chat open. I don't know what people are saying, but I can only imagine.
Well,
that
don't
people are
pay
having.
attention to what
And
people
by
are
the way,
saying.
all
Don't
I'm-
pay attention to what
and-
people are saying.
if there's people watching this who are just seething, I'm just telling you what I'm explaining to you is what it is. And and I believe that people need to reckon with the reality of the situation to actually approach this into a meaningful conversation. Because again, I can't emphasize how much the one state thing is impossible from the Israeli perspective.
Yeah.
But you talk about sanctions. I mean, if you look at Russia, Western leaders, they all predicted there would be a total collapse of Russia's economy, but all that happened was it made
Chad saying, I don't think he's saying it's practical to genocide. I think he is exactly saying that. I think he's been saying it for an hour. That Israel will never open its borders, never have a one state. They will never, ever include the Palestinians as equal to them. And so, therefore, the only thing you can practically do is genocide them. And that was Destiny's argumentation. Sorry, we have to genocide the Palestinians or they have to go somewhere else. That's just what's practical. Be wary of these debate bros who logic themselves into a genocide. This is why I say logic is very dangerous if you're logicking yourself into a fucking genocide. No. I will not sit here and make excuses for Ethan fucking Klein or any of these boys. You are absolutely arguing for a genocide.
made them more nationalistic, made them more resolved. It made them basically search out new partnerships. And I don't think that there's any evidence that Israel would be unable to do the same things.
Because
It would.
the only
It would.
times where a sanctions
It doesn't need
regime,
America.
the only time the sanctions regime has ever worked is if it's threatening our allies. That's it. We can actually sanction our allies. We cannot sanction our enemies in a way that like stops them from finding a way to continue surviving
You
with the
think
same
doing
quality of
sanctions-
life. Israel is a democracy for Israeli Jews, right? It's not a democracy for the Palestinian
sanctions
citizens
work,
of Israel.
I don't.
What's up?
I think this idea that sanctions would change anything is.
Because it would dramatically change the quality of
What's
life.
the evidence of that? When has that worked?
I gave you the evidence. It worked in South Africa. The fear of sanctions alone and businesses pulling out of South Africa alone was enough to change the attitude on the ground. It did work. And not only that, but also I'm using this as an example because Israel was allied with South Africa and they personally saw how successful this was in South Africa, which is why
South
AIPAC
Africa
made it.
apartheid is completely different than the situation
Why
that
is it completely different?
Israel, first of all, again, the Israelis believe that they will all be killed. So they're fighting for their survival.
The South African white population also believe that 100%.
They also have like a ton of. I feel like they have a lot of leverage in terms of their.
Everyone who has historically been the oppressor has always believed that once that oppression is not maintained, that the retribution will be just as violent, if not worse. And history has never shown an example of that in the way that it actually has like been an incredibly violent retribution.
Are you saying sanctions was singularly responsible for ending apartheid?
No, of course not.
And so, what percentage of it would you say?
I don't know what the exact percentage what the sanctions would be, but all matter of conflict ultimately ends with a peaceful solution. No matter how violent the conflict is, it ends up with a negotiations process, right? I don't know what the exact percentage of the.
Do you know why? Because most people at the end of the day just want to fucking go home to their families. Okay? Like most people at the end of the day just want fucking life to feel normal. They just want it to feel normal. And so this idea that like they're planning their revenge and they're going to come back, maybe, or maybe they're just going to fucking move on with their life. But also you can't keep things in place that keep them subjugated under the law. And that's why Americans are still fighting for Native Americans and Black communities, because you still found a way somehow to use racism in the system to oppress people. Like, that's why gay people are trying to fight for their rights. It's also why it's frustrating to see people of color fight against us constantly. We're always at each other's throats, minorities and minorities. Everybody's always at it. Stop it. We just want to live normal fucking lives. Gay people just want normal fucking lives. Everybody just wants a normal ass, boring ass life. We all just want to come home and have our boring ass lives. But everyone's always convinced, like, you're grooming kids, you're a sleeper, you're going to, like, we just want a boring life. Let me have my boring life, okay? You know? Oh, chat, the trolls are in. The trolls are showing up in chat. Oh, man. I don't know how Hassan's going to do it today, bro.
What the sanctions was, but of course,
Yeah.
on the ground, violent actions was also a major factor in making this apartheid as costly as possible. But yes, international support being pulled out of South Africa was a gigantic burden for
Chad said this is exactly the same time the trolls showed up. Well, maybe because they just woke up. It's almost 11 a.m. Pacific. Maybe they all just woke up.
the South African economy, which forced the hands of South African politicians that wanted to maintain the apartheid into, making a new arrangement finally.
Do you think the global politics, geopolitics is that we see in the world today is comparable to what we saw then?
No, because I think the collapse of the USSR also was playing a role in that process.
Because don't you think that like there's different allegiances and groups of nations forming, and one of them will take in Israel. There's just no shot.
The
China,
idea,
Russia,
the
North
idea
Korea,
that the idea that someone might take in Israel is insignificant in this circumstance. You know why? Because the quality of life that Israel has afforded to at least Jews inside of Israel proper is one that people do not want to take away. This is the major difference. If you live in a country like Russia, your government is already positioned against America sanctioning you before America even sanctions you, so you can withstand sanctions. Israel, on the other hand, has never considered the quality of life shift that would be seismic if there was Western sanctions upon Israel. It's just like, it's untenable. There's no way out of it. There's no like, oh, we'll just like deal with China and then China will defend us while we still maintain the same quality
they'll
of
sell
life.
them arms. They'll you know what I mean?
I'm not saying that there aren't.
There'll be a valuable exchange of goods, ideas, IP, weapons. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
certainly.
And by the way, Israel, I say this because people really need to understand how much they think that if they dissolve the borders, they will all be killed. They will use a nuclear bomb if they have to.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. It's like saying we can't fucking raise taxes on the wealthy because like they'll just pull out and go somewhere else. Like that's nuclear holocaust being an option in this situation is like a ridiculous one. Like that's not.
I only say it because the only way I see this happening is a all-out war. That's the only way. And Israel, in that case, if they were on the back end of losing an all-out war, they would use a nuclear bomb.
By the way, as far as the apartheid regime goes, I believe Israel was one of the countries that actually.
I know this is like 2 years ago, right? But comparing it to what he talked to Sam Cedar about yesterday, like listen, when we're talking about men and their propensity for violence, this is also what we mean. When we're I get it. Like if I was sitting in a group full of men, it feels like Ethan is. Can we suggest something different, please? Like, yeah, in a bubble where we're all just arguing with a bunch of men who are like, who should we kill today? That's why we all have criticisms of Barack Obama and Trump and everybody else and Harris, because we're like, is all of your solutions just violence? What's the reason they don't believe women can be president? Because they don't think they're going to be violent enough. God forbid a dream world happens where Israel goes, okay, we fucked up. We're going to work with the international community. We're going to stop all forms of violence, and we're going to bring in all of the food supplies, infrastructure's back in. Everybody's funding this project. We're restoring anything we destroyed. It's like, God forbid we have some answers where we feed people. God forbid some of the answers at hand are like we save people's lives. God forbid we let ambulances come through. This is why they've been calling it a genocide. This is why we're saying, doesn't matter how slow it is. It doesn't matter that it's been over 75 years. It was always the plan from day one to take over the region and to kick everybody out who was there already. It's like, I don't even know what we're talking about at this point. I am fucking tired. Okay? Fucking tired, bro. Yeah. I'm almost over listening to this, to be honest. It really like, I know what it's like to be in a boy bubble and to think the only way to speak to other boys is to talk about like, yeah, we'll have to kill them. Oh, definitely, we'll have to genocide them. Like, I know that that's the way the conversation goes, but I think I'm just at a stage in my life where I'm like, nah. No, like, I'm not entertaining this conversation with you. And it feels like a little bit talking to Ethan Klein is entertaining that conversation. The fact that he can't see it is the problem. The fact that he's even days after October 7th having this conversation with Hassan, the fact that for 2 years he hasn't educated himself on Palestine, the fact that he hasn't been open to the fact that he could be wrong, the fact that after 2 years he still has the audacity to go up against Sam Cedar with these bullshit talking points. And he has the audacity to say, I'm pro-Palestine? My bro, you know, I'm tired, bro. I'm tired. Yeah, the confidence is astounding. Just his obsession, like he's so loud and so wrong and so confident, and at the expense of literally any ounce of humanity, dude. It is quite shocking that in 2 years Ethan hasn't learned anything, huh? Wow. And that's, you know, when people ask me, Brittany, like, what do you mean when you say people don't change? You know, he might change in little ways. He might get a better haircut, lose some weight, do whatever. I don't know. He might get a new, you know, whatever. He might get a piercing. But this is what I mean when I say, like, people don't change. You know, it's very hard to change. It's a lot of humility. You need the humility to change because we're raised to think that the version we are is like the best version or the good version or like we're good as we are. And so the fact that Ethan, you know what I mean? He hasn't changed. He hasn't grown on this. He hasn't gotten better. He's doubled down. And the people with him have doubled down with him. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. His whole crew, like people who keep, it's amazing. So yeah, when I say like people don't change, this is what I mean. Like you getting a new fade is not change. Okay? Yeah, it happens. I mean, it happens. I mean, look, my parents brag about being lifelong Republicans. So that should tell you everything. You know, that should tell you everything. When people brag about being like lifelong Democrats, I'm like, that is not a brag. That is not the brag you think it is. You know what I'm saying? That's not the brag you think it is. And that's like, that's the point. People don't understand growth looks like inconsistency sometimes. And the consistency comes with you getting better every year, not with you staying the same. Bro.
Actually continued to support South Africa through the embargo.
I know that. They had a
but it
joint
didn't work.
group.
It didn't work, right? Like at the end
I'm
of the day.
not defending Israel. I know Israel.
I'm not saying this to defend Israel. I'm saying it didn't work.
They had a joint operation with the South Americans to build nuclear bombs. I know they love them.
The reason why I mentioned that is because South Africa had allies as well, but they lost Western support. And when you lose Western support,
Israel
you
is
cannot
not gonna give them
without
alone.
Western support.
It's not enough support from nations to make a significant
No, it
difference.
is. It 100% is. If you are maintaining pressure on an ally, their economy will crumble so fucking fast that they will never ever be able to withstand it in the same way that a foreign adversary can. A foreign adversary can greatly diminish their quality of life because their quality of life is already not up to standard if you compare it to like Israel and the many benefits that Israeli citizens have and enjoy. That is a genuine political problem. That is a major political problem, which is why people will say sanctions only work on allies. They don't work on foreign adversaries. The Israeli population would not, in a million years, take a massive seismic shift in their quality of life. A lot of people would fucking probably try to believe.
They would.
That's
You
what
don't
I mean.
understand. No. They would. They would take the seismic shift. They would. That's the thing that you don't understand. They would. People underestimate what the fuck Israel means to the people that live there.
My point is always this. If BDS wasn't a genuine threat that Israel noticed and thought was like a legitimate threat, they would have.
Okay, so just a heads up. Here's where I'm at emotionally, girlies and gays. Okay, first of all, look at this is my. Am I showing anything important? Here's my homepage on YouTube. So first we have Do Not Worry podcast doing a live reaction to Ethan Klein and Hassan. Here we have Ethan Klein's show having a respectful conversation with my ex co-host Hassan Piker, 9 p.m., which is an hour from now. So, because I'm in Croatia. So what I'm thinking is here's what I'm thinking. Here's really where I'm at. I can't stay up and watch that. I've been awake for hours now. I'm European time. I'm too tired. I'm gonna take the weekend off. Saturdays are my day off. I'm gonna take tomorrow off. I'm gonna come back Tuesday publicly with a stream. We'll cover it. Okay, that's what we're gonna do. Monday is pod and members only stream. We'll cover other stuff, but I'll come back Tuesday in public. We'll talk about it. Okay. I need a breather. I feel like my brain is swelling. I feel like we've gone pretty far. We've gone halfway through this conversation with them. And honestly, I'm kind of out of spoons if I'm going to be transparent with you. And I feel like we covered the basics. If you guys want to continue watching on your own, I do recommend doing that. I'll link the video in the chat. I just think there's not much more I can say here, and I want to give you guys some space, like a breather room between me and the debate they're about to have. Is that okay? Do we feel good with that? I just man, I feel like my brain is literally swollen. So I'm not going to watch them live. I might skip in to read chat because I love reading chats. But I'll watch it. I'll wait. I'll watch it live with you guys Tuesday. You guys can pre-watch, of course. If you want to jump into my Discord and do a watch event together, you guys can even do that if you want. For members, but I don't. Yeah, I think this is a good point to end my stream is what I'm trying to say. I think this is a good point. I want to thank you guys for being here and being so supportive, and I want to thank you for the super chats. I want to thank you for being compassionate. I want to thank you for having a good discussion today. I think that's really important. And yeah, man, I can't believe how much I feel drained covering Ethan. I just covered it for a week, and I feel like Joe has me in his fucking cage and I'm listening to him rant about what a white knight he is. And I just want to kill myself because I'm like, Jesus, I would rather die than be fucking in Joe's book cage listening to him talk about how much he loves women. That's what it feels like, bro. Okay, I just finished season 5. So I got a lot of Joe jokes up my sleeve, Okay, join the Discord, 18 plus for members only. Be respectful. Events every Sunday. We're starting Arcane. Season 1, if you guys want to join us. We also have professionally taught yoga, chronically ill girlies in mind, since I'm fibromyalgia girly. May 4th, come join us. Mother's Day off, but other May weekends filled up every Sunday, usually on the Discord. We have events. 18 plus, I don't want to talk to teenagers. YouTube memberships, all ages, because they're just YouTube videos. I've got Bojack. I've got streams on Mondays for members. We got things to do. Thank you for being here. Like the stream. Treat yourself to something nice today and think of me. If you guys smoke weed, take a hit for me. Okay? I do miss my weed. Take a hit for me, girlies. We'll listen to some Samantha Dragonati on our way out today. And thanks for being here. I appreciate it. I really do. All right. Talk to you on Tuesday. Answer the phone. Answer the phone. Answer it. Hello? It's your mom calling, girls. Answer it. Talk to you Tuesday. Hello?
What's your favorite scary movie?
Who is this?
popcorn.
You making popcorn?
Uh-huh.
I only eat popcorn at the movies.
Well, I'm getting ready to watch a video.
Really? What?
Oh, just some scary movie.
Can I be the helpless victim? Okay, let's see. No, please don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface. I want to be in the sequel.